Guess what?
What?
I literally just got my blood work. Well, I got my blood work back from my creatinine yesterday, and I just got my hemoglobin and my iron levels back right now. Like I just looked at them.
How is it?
So check this out. So on zero EPO, when my creatinine was at 6.0, my hemoglobin. You remember when they wouldn't let me? My hemoglobin when they wouldn't let me donate blood, it was at 11, which is low. On 17,000 of EPO, remember, this stuff's getting shipped in from Turkey. So I don't know how well it stays in transit. I don't know if it needs to be cold. But check this out. My kidney numbers are worse, but my hemoglobin's 13.
Yeah, I mean, that's the treatment that they give to people with CKD. They give them erythropoietin because...
So I'm guessing my hemoglobin got down to like 10 or whatever, or maybe even lower, my hemoglobin. So anyways, the range, it's funny. The range for my age is 13.2. I'm 13.0, so I'm 0.2 under. What you wouldn't worry about that, right?
No, and also the main issue with the anemia with CKD is it increases the mortality from CKD, but it's a side effect of the main issue, which is the reduction in filtration rates over time. So it's something to like deal with the side effect, but the root effect. So tell me what happened to the creatinine. And are you checking now Cystatin C and creatinine?
I told you he won't write the labs. I'm going to ask the new doctor for him. I'm the new doctor. I'll ask him. And
let's talk about doctors also. But like, first of all, what did you find out? Sorry, I have this finger thing. I know it's both of you are staring at it. You're like, what's this long finger? I'm like one of those guys at a football game. You know, I can constantly point really well now. Hey, Blue, welcome to the conversation. How you doing, brother? Blue's looking good. He hasn't slept probably for 5 days. He never sleeps. He's a vampire, actually.
So my hematocrit's 47, so I'm in range.
Yeah, that's in range. But what is the creatinine? Why aren't you telling me? It's very secretive.
Oh, there you are.
Can you hear me now?
Absolutely.
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
Welcome, Blue. We're so excited to have you here.
Yes. I was telling you I have a bad finger too.
Oh, do you really?
Yes, because when I do emails and stuff, I chew my fingernails, and I had a real bad hangnail. So yeah, it's bad.
Oh yeah, the thumb is I mean, other than the index finger, I was just happy I didn't do it to my thumb because that would have been destructive, you know.
Yes.
Anyway, wait. So Boston's telling us about his recent creatinine numbers. So he just got blood tests.
So my creatinine. Remember when I first got it tested? It was 6.02.
Yeah.
So 7 months later, it's at 7.57.
So but slowly increasing. It's steadily.
Yeah. So I talked to Bo. He's surprised how slow it's creeping up. He expected it to climb. So so even when I was off the gear, it's climbed at the same rate. 0.30 every month is the rate I'm climbing at right now, and that's when I was off the gear completely.
So let's just explain something to the audience so they know why is that happening. So when you get in a state of chronic kidney disease, your kidney is no longer filtering your blood well. So there's some things in your blood, most namely, there's a thing called uremic toxins. And these uremic toxins, when you don't clear them out of your blood, they stay in your blood. These things have a lot of some of them are antioxidants, but they end up causing a lot of oxidative stress to your body that's not dealt with. Oxidative stress itself then damages the kidney further. So it's a positive feedback loop. If your kidney is damaged, it doesn't filter well. The not filtered particles damage the kidney more, which is why I think, Boston, we need to do a little bit of an intervention this time. So my opinion, so we try not to talk about it every time because it's a buzzkill. Who wants to discuss this every time? I completely empathize with you and stuff like that. But I just wanted to say one thing. I think we need to try to get that daily dialysis, because if we're not going for the transplant soon, which is difficult too unless we get a donor, right? Well, let's try to figure out how to get that daily dialysis. And you're not going to figure out from that which doctor you're going to.
Well, no. I'm gonna start talking to my other one, but there's no way I'm gonna get on dialysis when I feel great. My potassium levels are not like sky high or anything.
That's true, but what I'm saying is this, right? Remember those toxins? They're the ones making it continue to decline so quickly. Well, it's not that quick. Actually, yours is really slow, which, by the way, makes me think that Dave may not be totally accurate about our idea. Originally, we thought you might have systemic inflammation or some inflammatory condition in the kidney. If so, it would have progressed much faster.
Well, I've been doing all those the EFAs and all that shit like you recommended. I bought $150 of these Chinese herbs today. I said, this is my last chance. I got a bunch of astragalus. I got a bunch of these Chinese herbs that I'm going to try. But dude, I mean, like I said, there's no way I'm going to get on dialysis the way I feel. There's no way.
Okay. If you do, but one thing though, okay, my second pitch to you is this. So this guy you're visiting is like, he's ridiculous. The message you sent me is so funny about this guy. So why don't you head over to, I know it's maybe not covered by your insurance, but why don't you pay for one session at the Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville?
I won't drive that far.
I'll pay for it.
I won't drive that far.
I said the same thing to Boston. He said, I'm not driving there.
Bro, Blue, we should go to Florida and drive him, for God's sake. Just do one appointment with a guy who knows what he's doing. Because, like, Boston, if you haven't noticed, I never recommended, like, other than EPA, I never mentioned, like, herbs to you because I'm scared of it. I know which herbs reduce inflammation, but when somebody has a slower digestion of the kidney and filtration of their blood, I don't know if having too many of those herbs in the body could actually be difficult for the kidney. So we don't know anything. So we need a guy who's like actually specialized in this. And the funny thing is that Jacksonville Mayo Clinic is one of the best in the whole U.S. for nephrology.
Well, like I said, I'm going to Tampa. That's the farthest I'll drive in. I got a guy from I got a referral from John at Titan Medical. He said this guy's like the best.
Well, okay, at least we got a guy that knows what he's doing. Then we could. So one other thing is, at least that guy will be able to give you the blood work that you need. I'm sure he's going to do the SDMA, Cystatin C. Remember the SDMA I was talking to you about on voice note today about the arginine?
Yes.
So just for the audience to know, there's two metrics that I always check for myself for my cardiovascular health. One is called asymmetric dimethylarginine, and one is called symmetric dimethylarginine. They're very informative about arterial health and stuff like that. But SDMA, symmetric dimethylarginine, is a proxy for kidney health that does not get affected by muscularity, just like Cystatin C. So Cystatin C, SDMA, and creatinine should always be tested, and C-reactive protein, and fibrinogen.
That's the one he wouldn't test for, is a C-reactive. He said it was pointless, but the new doctor will, I'm sure.
That's insane that he said that. Man, there's so many weird doctors.
The new dude, I had to beg this guy to get my hemoglobin tested, but I'm really glad that it went up 2 points. But like I said, I'm still 0.2 under, but I guess that's nothing. 0.2.
No, it's not. That's nothing. The issue is just like the filtration rate.
In my iron, I'm taking an iron supplement, and my iron, I'm still in range with the iron.
But bro, last week you had the darkest beard in the history of humanity. Tons of people commenting on it before they saw the full video. It still hasn't come out, so they didn't hear it. And then this week you have no beard. What's going on?
Yeah, so I tried to line it up myself, and I fucked it up. I went too high, and I said, fuck that. I'm just going to take it off.
I tried to do the same thing. So my mustache was normal. I was like, hey, what if I was like, had one of those French mustaches that go a little bit in? So Blue, by the way, Blue, where does your name, you spell Blue like French. My wife was telling me. Are you French?
Yeah. Yeah, my mom's side is.
No way. Are you Acadian or like recent French?
My mom's family is actually Fouchés, so it would have been Blue Fouché. But my dad's side of the family is German, so it got canceled.
No way. So, but are they? So the Acadians are like a people that the fur traders from France that came in the 1600s. A lot of them live in like, you know who's one of them is Greg Doucette. He's an Acadian. There's a lot, and there's some of them living in different parts of the U.S. and in obviously New Orleans and that area. Are you from those guys or later French immigrants?
I think later French immigrants.
I have one also. My great-great-grandmother is from Alsace-Lorraine, I think it's called, on the border of France and Germany, something like that.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, well, it's just one person. But I was curious because I saw Blue was a EU. I was like, wait a minute, this might be French. So I went and asked my wife.
Oh, yeah. I hated that name when I was a kid. I can say that much.
It's not your nickname. It's your real name.
No, that's my birth name.
That's so cool. I like it.
I like it now because it's unique. But, you know, as a kid, being called blue balls and everything else. Yeah, you don't appreciate it that much. You know, you go home and cry and say, can I go by my middle name? But you know, as you get older, you know, girls liked it in school and stuff like that. So, I mean, yeah, it's unique.
So I'm trying to name my daughter now, and I'm picking between two names. One name I finally convinced my wife of, and she likes it, which I'm not going to say yet because I don't know which name it's going to be. Excuse me. The second name is an Arabic name that means lioness in Arabic. My name in Arabic means lion. So this name is actually the origin of the word Leo. Leo is Latin, comes from the Greek Leon, but Leon apparently may come from the Semitic root word, Proto-Semitic root word Lebi. And so this name for females is Lebwa. But the problem is, I told my wife this name, she says, sounds like lesbian. I'm like, oh, fuck, what can I do with that? And the other problem is that in Syria, instead of calling women the B word, they use the word lebo. So, so I'm like, but I really want to name that name. So it's a little difficult. I don't think anyone. It doesn't sound like lesbian to you, does it? Le Boy?
No, I wouldn't ever think of that.
Hey, I'm so glad you. But I'm gonna tell my wife that afterwards. Any support I can get from you guys is very useful. But anyway, Blue, I'm so happy to have you here. Just for the audience to know, if you haven't seen Blue and Boston's podcast, it's called the Boston Blues, right?
Yeah, we do it every now and then. You know,
I love the podcast. I listen to every episode except the last one, which I have. Is it up yet?
Yeah.
Oh, I really want to listen to it. Okay,
that was a good one because Blue finally opened up and started talking about some names.
I heard. Okay, I want to listen to it. Apparently, you talked about some people that have injured me recently, so I was very happy about that. Anyway, so
well, you know they did it out of insecurity.
That's true, absolutely. So, well, insecurity in one case, and the other one, the guy's not totally right. But so okay, about that. So I want to tell you guys something interesting. So this morning, we never discussed Boston, the Guy Cisternino event.
No, we haven't.
So I discussed it somewhere, and the reaction was extremely negative, apparently. People mostly support the innocent bystander, not Guy. I bet you do too, right?
I don't really. I think it's fucking ridiculous, the whole thing.
Yeah, it's a little ridiculous. But to be honest, this morning I pulled a mini Guy Cisternino, which is very mini, I suppose. But what I did was, it wasn't intentional. So I want to ask you guys your opinion on this about gym etiquette. So I recently started going to the gym again because the climbing gyms are closed. And I go in the morning. And obviously I still have my old mentality. I really want to work out seriously. So I was going through my workout and it was like a push day. And at the end, I wanted to do some cable laterals. So I go over to the cable machine. Now check this out. So there's 3 cable machines with 3 individual cable points, right? I mean, with 6 cable points. So there are 2 people on one, 2 people on the other one. And then on this one, there's one guy on one side. And he's doing tricep pushdowns. He's like a 40-year-old Mexican guy. Just doing tricep pushdowns. So I come to him very politely. I was like, hey, are you using the other one? And the other one was positioned perfectly for me. The cable's low. I could do my shoulder raises. And he said, yeah. He got off his thing and he said, yeah, I'm using it. So I said, can I do, turns with you? Just because I only have a couple of sets to do and I got to go. And then he looked at me and said, no, I'm using it.
Wow.
So I was like, what the hell? I was shocked. I mean, it's so rude. Why would you not do turns with me? You know, and the thing is, you're not using the other one when you're using this one. He's not using both. He's using one and then switching over. So what would you do in that situation?
Me personally, man, you know me, I would just walk away, but I would be shocked if I've never had somebody say no to me in that situation.
Me neither. I think it's maybe the second time in my whole life. I've never seen it. And the thing is, he's not. So this was the thing. I probably would have just stood there and waited. But he said no in such a rude way. And then he got on the other one and did shoulder raises with it. So I'm like, and then I look at him and he's doing 2 plates on the thing, 15 pounds or 20 pounds. I couldn't control myself. So I looked at him. I was like, you're lifting girl weights and you're stopping me from lifting? Are you joking? You're lifting female weights? I'm here to actually lift weights. You're stopping me from doing my workout. And as he was doing the shoulder, he's looking at me. He's like, and then he finished the thing. He said, oh, go ahead. So I took it and I quadrupled his weight and did the exact same thing. And I could let him take his turn. So fucking pathetic guy. What are you doing? Work out like a girl and stopping me?
Ask Blue what he would have done because he used to have a temper.
Well, it was not a temper, but bro, he's rude. I told him, you're rude and weak. What are you doing here? You know, don't pick one. You could be nice and weak. That's fine, but don't be rude and then lift a girl's weight in front of me and make me wait. What the hell is that? What do you think, Blue?
I
was rude. I realized.
Well, the old me would have been very confrontational. I would have definitely taken over the machine, but but now, no, I would not. I wouldn't say anything. I'd be like, okay, and I'd walk off.
So he immediately gave me the thing. Once I called him weak and stuff, I did my set, and then he did his set. While he did his set again, I said, you're so weak, man. This is embarrassing that you do this. And then a guy on the other one said, hey, bro, this one's free. You can come here. I said, no, I have this one. So I just kept going with him until he left. And then as I walked out of the gym, I see him like working out, staring at me. I look at him, he looks down immediately. So I was like, okay, this is much better. Unfortunately,
Was he a big guy or no?
I mean, he was an average guy. He was just, I don't know what he was doing, stopping people from working. Why would he think you need two of them, bro? Just be a nice guy.
Sometimes people are not there for the physical activity. They're there because, you know, some of these people have mental illness. I truly believe that. And so, you know, sometimes, you know, like yourself are a victim of that because, you know, he's not really there to build his physique. He's there for, you know, maybe mental therapeutic reasons. And so, you know, you crossed, you know, roads with him. You know, there's so many people like that there, you know, like you said, you know, the amount of weight he was lifting, how he acted to you, the entitlement, you know, something could just be mentally off.
Anyway, I thought it was a funny incident. Also, I want to remind the audience, Boston Loyd's forum, sign up to it. You know, you guys, I don't recommend any product unless I believe in it. I'm a member of the forum myself. It's extremely valuable. We got some questions people ask questions about different areas. It's the most valuable forum I've ever joined in my life. I wish I had it in my early 20s. Very valuable.
It's very active these days, too. It's very active. Very friendly, too.
I'm very happy about it. Yeah, it's becoming like a little nice community, right?
Yeah.
All right. So the second thing I want to discuss is Broderick Chavez. So the clip came out about Broderick Chavez, and I was confused, bro. It's like we were so clear in that clip, and the comments are like, "Oh, why are these attacks ad hominem? You guys need to dissect his actual advice." But I'm like, there's no reason to. So I want to explain this. I hope this is clear to the audience. That's logical. So I've never actually listened to Broderick's videos by myself. I listened to him once on Fuad Abiel's podcast. I listened to the whole thing. And I remember some odd things. Like, for example, he described molecular structures of steroids, but then doesn't describe receptors. Molecular structures of receptors. So if you have a molecular structure of a steroid, you need to understand how could that bind to the progesterone receptor. We don't really know, but you could hypothesize. How does it bind better to the androgen receptor? What other receptors could bind to that molecular structure? If you just mention the structure and then skip over that, there's no benefit to it. What's the benefit to it? To make your audience know that you know the molecular structure, which is shows some authority. And the main thing we talked about last time is this idea of having secret clients and secret. By the way, apparently he does have some open clients. So there's one powerlifter that I've heard of before who's a legitimate guy. But so he has secret clients and secret companies that he works with. You know, this is not really an attack on him. It's just like my whole life, and I don't know, Blue, if you agree with this or you have this kind of same sense. But whenever I listen to people, I try to pick out conmanship. I've read books about con men. I really am interested in the subject a lot. What's a con man? Con man is a confidence man. That means he builds confidence with you. That's not necessarily based on facts. So, for example, and I would never have said this before, but I want the audience just to understand. I consult with top athletes, including, you know, top people in the Olympia. I never mention it. I never mention who I did, nothing. And I don't mention I have secret consultation with these people. Why? Because I'm not trying to convince you guys that I'm an authority. I'm not an authority. If you hear what I say and you don't agree with it, bro, then that makes sense. If you have a valid reason, also tell me. You might change my opinion, right? I'm not a guru or an authority. The second thing is I consult also for major companies. But I don't mention it. They don't want me to mention it. So I never say I have a secret company I'm consulting for. Why would I ever say that? So a lot of people said, why would he say the athletes that he coaches and the company coaches if they don't want him to? Aren't there NDAs? Yeah, but why would you say you do it in the first place? You don't need to.
And he does it in every interview. He says that. It's not like he's mentioned it once. He does it in every interview.
So that's the point, is just that it raised red flags to me. Does that mean that everything Broderick says is false? No. I mean, I just saw a lot of red flags. And then comes the question of what could we learn from Broderick, right? In steroids, the king is not the guy who goes and reads academic papers. The king is the guy of empiricism, experience. People like Bleu and Bostin, but more prominently, Hani, Chad Nichols. Those are the guys that know exactly what they're doing. They really know. And there are people like that in other sports. But to be honest, I've looked into MMA. I've looked into arm wrestling. Most of those steroid guys don't know that much compared to Chad and these guys. So the most experienced people with steroids are in bodybuilding. That's how I got into bodybuilding personally. I was into powerlifting, arm wrestling. I've always been into bodybuilding because of the steroid talk. But you look for experience. So you don't really need Broderick there. And then if you're looking for academic stuff, you have Derek, Steve, Derek is extremely lucid, great analysis of academia. So my whole point is, if you ever see a red flag conmanship, do you need that information? And if you don't, why would you use it? What do you guys think?
Yeah, I see he has a major ego, and I would take a guy any day that has trial and errored over a guy that's just, saying crazy stuff about molecular structure and this and that. I mean, to me, and I think he's 100% lies too. I think 100% lies. He says he used to have a great physique. He says he used to be a great bodybuilder.
Did you see the picture I sent you?
Yes.
Bro,
Horrible.
what? Is that a dude? We're not going to say what it is exactly, but is that a dude or what is going on there?
I don't know.
How tall is Broderick?
He's short. He's short. But
Okay.
dude, that guy
Looks
would
like a linebacker.
He used to have a good physique and all this stuff. There's not one picture floating him around where he even looks like he's under 15% body fat.
Yeah, exactly. So, final thing. Sorry, Blue. We were just going through the housekeeping stuff before we start the main discussion.
Yeah, no problem.
So, final thing is, a lot of people have been trying to attack Bostin on my show. I believe it's because I attacked Victor Black, followed by Broderick Chavez recently. This has nothing to do with Bostin. But I want to say something to the audience. If you attack Bostin on my page, you'll either be blocked or I'm going to go after you. And the guy who knows what I'm talking about, I've just had a very severe conversation with him and screamed at him on voice note many times. So he's a famous guy. Bostin knows what I'm talking about. I just want to be clear to people. To me in life, the most important value is loyalty, right? So I am loyal to my friends, genuinely. I have my friends from when I was 10 years old, I'm still friends with, and I'm loyal to people. If you attack my friend, you better have a legit reason for saying it. And if you do, I'm going to take it to him and ask if he maybe could change that thing, and that's his decision. I'm never going to throw somebody, my friend, who is Boston, off my podcast. That will never, ever happen. So stop that shit. It's really offensive to me, personally, not to Boston. Second of all, I want to say something. For those that say Boston spread a lot of bad stuff in the industry, for God's sake, you guys haven't listened to the podcast. Boston never, ever recommends anything crazy on this podcast. In fact, he constantly warns people about megadosing. He is like that to his clients. He's not crazy, doesn't do the things that he used to do for himself to his own clients, and that's before he got the kidney thing. Since the kidney thing, our show is a reminder to the audience every week of the dangers that can happen with bodybuilding or with steroid use, let's say.
And you've seen those emails. You've seen those emails that I forwarded you from people, right? That praise the show, saying that they got their creatinine checked and they're looking out for their health now when they never did before. I send you those emails.
Let's be clear to the audience. I mean, not to toot our own horn, but where did bodybuilding learn that steroids are directly toxic to the kidneys, irrespective of blood pressure? From this channel, never before. Where did people start using ARBs? From this channel, never before. Where did people start using beta blockers? From this channel, never before. Where did people start using ezetimibe? From this channel, never before. So if you're going to come and attack a channel for being bad for health because you dislike Boston, because you're jealous or whatever the hell is wrong with you, it's not going to go in this channel, right? Anyone who says that will be blocked. I don't accept that shit. Don't attack my friends whatsoever. So that's a lot. So now, guys, there's new sections for our questions. Boston and I created two. So it's not rate your physique. You guys think it's the Fuad rate your physique. We're not doing that. We're doing rate your genetics, which is, we think, more fun. The second thing we're going to do, and by the way, that's because somebody sent in the idea, and I was like, this is a great idea, actually, rate your genetics. The second thing we're going to do is cycle critiques. We're going to do that every week. We have a few this week, and we have about six guys' pictures to look through. Another thing I was wondering, Boston, what do you think about blood work critique?
Man, people would probably not even send their blood work, but that would be awesome.
We already got blood work without us asking from one of the guys. And so I'm thinking in the future, if you guys want your blood work critiqued, I'd love to look through it for you guys. We'll do a couple each time. Maybe you guys over time can learn.
That's a good one, man.
Yeah. So we got three now. Rate your genetics, cycle critiques, and rate your blood work, I guess. Now, if you're going to rate your genetics, I want you guys to remember, send your lifts, your big lifts and your weakest lifts. Send your time lifting and your goals and pictures, and you DM them to me. I don't want to go to your profile on Instagram. I have them saved. So Abu Sagr, who is the father of the Falcon, a great follower of the channel, this time, just send me next time your pictures. I don't want to go to your profile this time. And then also for the cycle critiques, give us the cycle, the duration, and the goals. For your blood work, send us the blood work you actually use, and I'll tell you what I think you might be missing also from the blood work that you want to get tested. Sound good?
Sound good to me.
So sorry guys, I had some technical difficulties. I can't open the pictures very well, but we'll do the same guys next time. So Adam and everybody else, will do your pictures next time. I have 6 guys and we'll review them next time. Okay, let's do the cycle critiques. Yeah. So Davey Boy says, who's a great follower of the channel, you probably remember him in Boston, he's wonderful. He says cycle critique. So basically he has a coach who gave him a cycle that he doesn't quite like. He only likes the super draw part of it, and the goal of the cycle is to recomp. He's a lean guy generally, so he's taking 40 milligrams of Anavar a day, 375 milligrams of testosterone a week, 450 milligrams of Deca a week, 300 milligrams of Masteron a week. In 6 weeks, he's going to drop the Anavar and double it all. Oh, where did he go? We lost him?
Is he gone?
Yeah, he'll be back. So he says in 6 weeks, he's going to drop the Anavar and double it all. And then he's going to run for 12 weeks in total with Superdrol at the end.
That cycle to me is terrible because it was good up until I read that he's running more Deca than test.
Yeah. In what way? Because of the sexual side effects?
I would bring the Deca down to like 250.
But why do you think he's running 450 of Deca? Is he, because that's not the joint thing. The 250 is the joint thing. Are you worried that he's going to get sexual side effects and prolactin?
Yeah, side effects. Correct. Yep.
Yeah. The only time I think people run high Deca, although this is not that high, but the only time they run it high without those side effects is if they have a higher level of test.
Correct. That's what I'm saying.
Or no test. Sometimes if
yeah,
they have...
so if he wants to have that Deca dose, that's fine, but you got to run more test.
Yeah, if you run something like 250 milligrams of Deca or 300 milligrams of Deca, you'll get the joint lubrication, a little bit of that signaling, and it won't be overpowering. But your test will still be a little bit low. And the Masteron is really high, which could be good. You know, prolactin raises because of estrogen and progesterone. When both of those raise, prolactin starts to raise as well. So...
yeah, I would be more... I've the clients that have came to me that have experience with Deca higher than test have had sexual issues, high prolactin issues, and their physiques really didn't even respond that well. I think test is king. I think test should be your base. So that cycle, I'm going to give it a very negative critique because of that. Because that's one thing I preach against. I always think test should be a base.
I agree. 1 second. Let me see if I can do something. I'll do it later. Yeah, so he's dropped out, but I agree. So let's look at another one. Patrick Mihan says, my personal planned cycle is test and Anavar for the summer. 500 milligrams of test weekly and 40 milligrams of Anavar daily. By the way, when people are taking these weird numbers of Anavar 40 and stuff, where do they get the 10 milligram tabs? Do you think they're pharmaceutical?
No, there's plenty of places that carry 10 mgs. Like there's places that call it female Anavar. They make it in 10 mgs just because chicks use 5 to 10 mgs of this stuff. Yeah.
By the way, do you think like the Balkan Anavar? Have you ever tried it?
Very good.
Is it stronger than the underground lab ones in the US?
100%. That stuff is like as close as farm grade as you're gonna get. Now, don't get me wrong. There's a lot of Balkan fakes on fakes.
Yeah,
but if you're getting Balkan from that source that I gave you.
Yeah,
100%.
The problem is he has a minimum order that's like $500, $1,000. It's like,
that's an issue.
Yeah, but anyway, so he says he's taking 500 milligrams of test weekly. He's taking 40 milligrams of Anavar daily. I figured a cutting cycle would be good for the summer. I'm 41, been on TRT for 2 months with good results, and have what I would consider good health and average genetics. I've been back lifting seriously for over a year and don't see any signs of stopping. I call this my midlife crisis cycle. Nice guy. So basically, his cycles
500 test and 40 VAR.
Yeah,
I like it. It's simple and effective.
I'd like it too. Yeah, I like it too. Obviously, test is not the most muscle specific compound. If you're like trying to be like extremely healthy, maybe you would keep the test to your TRT dose and add Primo instead. And Anavar, that's like the lightest thing you could start with the least potential health effects, except your red blood cell count may increase more. But to be honest, you probably feel great on 500 milligrams of testosterone, don't you think?
Yeah, so he would get more muscle growth, I think, running 500 test. And then his physique would actually look better and harder if he did like a TRT test with like 300 Primo.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It would look hard, but it would also potentially be safer. I don't know where Blue dropped out, but I think he'll join again.
Let me see if he texted me.
Yeah, check. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that.
Oh, see, my computer just shut off and said it's configuring.
Okay. Well, we'll look through the cycle critiques. We got tons of questions today that are really interesting. But let's go through these. So, Muscle Mentor says 300 milligrams of test SIP, 600 Deca, again,
Oh God.
for start building up to 600 tests and 1,200 Deca over a course of 16 weeks. Anavar 40 milligrams per day for the first 4 weeks, and injectable Winstrol for last 4 weeks at 300 milligrams a week.
That cycle's the worst one I've heard in a while.
No, this one sucks. So he didn't say what the purpose is, right? But let's start with the same thing as last time. Your test is very low and your Deca's gonna be it's gonna be double. It's always gonna be double.
That's ridiculous.
You're probably, unless you're like one of those guys that, and to be honest, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't get Deca side effects, because everybody that uses Deca a lot, those old 90s guys, a lot of them use Deca a lot. They have weird personalities, man. There's a Deca kind of brain.
Deca definitely, with a lot of people, gives it like a depression effect.
When it's by itself, it's a little different. Apparently, Ty and Clark tells us, but when you combine it with testosterone, so you have high estrogen, high prolactin signaling from the Deca or nandrolone. He's back from his iPhone. So when you have that, you usually get a lot of side effects. But then I just wanted to mention something like, why would you take Anavar every single day? I mean, I know bodybuilders do that, and it sounds great, but why not take it on your days off? I mean, you could only resensitize yourself. You're not going to lose much. Your days off might be 2 days a week, 3 days a week.
I would say, yeah, training days. You could do it every training day. Yep.
I feel like that's better. And then what do you think about this injectable Winstrol? Is there oil injectable Winstrol?
Yeah, there's oil based, but a lot of it, unless it's made right, it crashes, you know?
Oh, really?
Well, you got to heat it up.
I hate Winstrol. When I used to take Winstrol, I'd get really strong fast, and then my joints would start hurting. And I don't know why the joints hurt so much from it, to be honest. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely a great pre-contest drug. It's one of my favorite drugs to run close to a show.
But
you're not going to be training that heavy close to a show anyways.
You think he's going to a show? He's not going to a show. He didn't mention anything.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying Winstrol is good for pre-contest.
I wonder if Winstrol has some anti-progestogenic effect, because it feels like the opposite of Deca to the joints.
It does. Right? It dries you out. It used to dry my nipples out when I had high prolactin.
No way. Okay, that's a sign.
My nipples used to shrink up on that shit.
I don't think anyone's ever thought of this directly before. This is very interesting.
Yeah, that's why I used to love that shit like 4 or 5 weeks out.
Blue, we're rating cycles because I failed to pull the pictures up, but we have a lot more questions later. This is the last cycle rating we're going to do for James Newman. So he says this is his first cycle, off season. He's 19 to 20 years old. He said, told to do 300 milligrams test, 300 milligrams Deca, and 200 milligrams Masteron. What do you think of the cycle overall, and is the Masteron necessary/beneficial?
Another horrible cycle. Fuck these goddamn Decas.
They love Deca. What do you think, Blue?
Honestly, I would have to see the guy, review his blood work. I mean, like, there's so many variables there. I mean, yeah. I honestly couldn't answer that. I would have to see a lot of things, you know, his past and present, you know, supplement use, everything. I get those type of questions.
So we should say that clearly. So our point of the cycle critique has nothing to do with health. So we're not talking about health, and we're judging by just what they're telling us. So obviously, these guys, one of them could have, an ApoE4 carrier, and he could develop plaque rapidly. And yeah, we don't know.
Even physically, though, I don't know what the person looks like. You know what I'm saying? Like, even when I get these questions, seriously, 50, 60 times a day, you know, emailed and everything, like, I never even answer these questions because just in case, I don't want them practicing something that, you know, could harm them. So I don't really, to be honest with you, like, I don't answer those type of things because it's just a blind answer because I have no idea anything about the person or anything, you know, and, you know, based on their physique, you know, I would have to have history, blood work. There's just so much stuff, even if it's just, you know, a very, you know, quick answer. It honestly is much more in depth.
But Blue, you don't have your clients run Deca higher than test ever, do you?
No, I mean, it's not common. I can say it's not common, but again, it depends on the person, you know, because, you know, like we've always said, you know, at the end of the day, these are different medications. And, you know, we're using them in a specific manner, you know, and it depends on the individual. So, you know, I've seen a lot of crazy stuff, you know, with different anabolics and, you know, certain things that aren't exactly common, but work for the individual and they're still healthy. So honestly, I would have to know way more about the person. So especially if they're using it for bodybuilding.
So I'm glad that Blue said that, actually, because this is the first time we ever ride the cycle. So maybe we can give a disclaimer to the audience, and this can be remembered by the audience in future episodes. So I also receive, obviously, these horrible questions all the time. I'm running this. What should I run? I have never responded to any of those messages ever. And it's not because I try to offend you guys, but because of a sense of integrity or responsibility. I'm concerned that if I tell you something, first of all, androgens are harmful to your health. There's no question about that. And I don't support the use of androgens actually at all, unless somebody realizes I don't care about my health and I have a goal, right? Now, maybe you could use a little bit of androgens, not harm your health, but in general, you're getting into something that's you're probably going to harm your health in the future. So that's one thing. The second thing is, I want everyone to understand that when we're critiquing these things, we're just taking the information we have. Like Bostin and I, when you cut off, we were basically talking about the fact that you were using higher amounts of Deca than testosterone, and both were quite low. But like we were saying, if you're sensitive to prolactin, specifically this, I don't know what the genetic polymorphisms involved are, but when estradiol and progesterone signaling raise, prolactin raises, but it doesn't do equally in a lot of people. Some people will have high estrogen. First of all, some people don't aromatize much, and then some people do aromatize. They do have high progesterone signaling from trenbolone or Deca or Ment or whatever, and then they don't suffer from higher prolactin levels. I mean, I get consultations all the time. The guy has a prolactin of 7, and he's running these kind of crazy compounds. I suffer a lot from prolactin, so obviously it depends on the person. But we'll answer this last one. I just wanted to say about the Masteron. I believe that unless you're like trying to look good acutely, an AI can do similar things for you. Maybe it can't make you as hard and all that kind of stuff. But the reason why I would consider having AI is that the more aromatase goes up above 20 to 40, you're going to have more side effects from the Deca, which is one of the reasons that it's troubling to combine tests with nandrolone and Deca. And that's why Ty and Clark made a whole reputation for himself, mainly around this idea of cycling just Deca, because it less side effects and because Deca is less harmful to the hair.
Dude, I know a couple of his people that have hired him and done that cycle, and they literally look like trash.
Yeah, but those guys are just obsessed with hair loss. So that's the thing. They keep their hair unless they use like finasteride, because then it inhibits. So DHT converts nandrolone into a less androgenic compound at the skin. So the hair and also at the groin, it would be the same case.
But yeah, nobody at the top level of bodybuilding is doing that,
No, you can't. There's no way you could just run Deca and miss out on everything else. You'd be playing with like half the tools that everybody else has. Yeah. All right, guys, let's get to some questions. So Mungo Jungo or Junge wants Blue and Bostin to explain to me why bodybuilders want to have a pump. Because I made a post that maybe I didn't explain myself fully, but explain to me, guys, what's the point of the pump for growing?
You mean as in hyperemia?
What's hyperemia?
You mean as in you said pump?
Yeah, like when you're working out and getting a pump in your muscle, as opposed to trying to lift higher weights.
Oh, I see what he's saying. I mean, no matter what, you're going to get hyperemia. I mean, shuttling blood into the muscle.
That's what that
is. Yeah. So, I mean, I believe, shuttling nutrient-enriched blood into the muscle. I'm very big on that, taking advantage of that time, to shuttle nutrients. I think there's different, styles of lifting at different times, different depths of fibers. I think that everything has to be, kind of moved around strategically, based on the individual, how they're responding, everything like that. There's going to be times where you're going to get insane pumps, and there's going to be other times where you're not going to get as much of a pump that, a lot of times when you're just going for, just brutal strength, you're not going to get that same isolated pump. But again, it just depends on, a lot of factors, what the person's doing and such. But, for, I believe, optimal growth, absolute maximum hyperemia, pushing as much nutrient enriched blood in that muscle. I'm very big on that.
Now that makes sense, because how we can liken it to the audience, for example, is like PRP for your knees or something like that. PRP is just, they concentrate your blood's growth factors, because your blood carries all these growth factors, which are including IGF-1 and everything else. And so they concentrate that and put it in sites of injury, and it heals those sites and grows new stem cells or other cells in the area. And the same is true for minoxidil, right, in the hair, which increases blood growth factors to the hair. So same with the derminator. And the same is true for pumping with the penis. All of these things increase blood growth factors to the area. So that makes a lot of sense, right? And I thought of that too. But what I meant about like pumping, I think we were talking about supplements that increase pumps, which maybe I should have qualified that too. But what I would imagine, I have no idea about hypertrophy. I've never done it myself, but I used to lift for strength. And I imagine that the ideal thing would be to be strong, and then maybe at the end of your workout or on separate workouts to pump the muscle filled with blood so it can recover very well. I would imagine that combination would be ideal, right? And the danger then being this, right? If you are so prone to getting muscle pumps, which can happen from steroids or from supplements sometimes, you can't necessarily get the same strength level all the time.
That's 100% true, especially when you're using stuff like insulin.
Yeah. So for example, in arm wrestling, we always try to use what are called dry compounds, because we can't, if you're arm wrestling, especially there's a bit of stamina and you get a pump, you just can't use your full muscular strength anymore. So that's what I was trying to distinguish. Okay, so Nathan Up says, what training style has Bostin found best for hypertrophy with reference to volume and intensity, with a Dorian Yates style hit training at one end of the spectrum and something like Milos's giant sets at the other? And Blue also, of course. What do you think, Blue?
I kind of like the middle. I like the middle, but I like changing it up. Like I tell my clients, if you're on a calorie deficit, I like to stick to lower volume stuff, right? If you're trying to get lean, in and out, high intensity, low volume. Now, if your calories are high and you're using stuff like insulin and growth hormone and stuff like that, if you like to train with a little bit of higher volume, it's not going to hurt. You know, it'll probably help you. But I think the main thing is switching it up. You know, like couple weeks do, anywhere from 4 to 8 reps. Build your strength, like you said, and then weeks later do 8 to 15, and then maybe even one workout do like 15 to 20 reps. I think it's crucial, just like changing your cycles. I think it's crucial to change up the training. Now, and my clients that are listening to this are probably like, will you send us the same type of thing? And even just because I send you the same type of training program, yeah, the sets I think should be the same. The rep range, for the most part, I give you like 8 to 12 reps, but you could always switch up the variations of the exercise. 1 week you could do T-bar row with your hands overhand, and then the next week you could do underhand. And there's so many different variations of exercises that you could do,
What do you think, Blue?
Yeah, absolutely. Everything in moderation. And, depending on that individual, and a lot of this comes down to genetics too. There's certain body parts that react differently. But I agree with Bostin completely. I tell people all the time, your rep should be cycled the same way as everything else, I have some guys like Bostin was saying, we're going through certain periods where, we're through, 5 to 6 reps, for a couple of weeks, and then 7 to 8 reps, and then gradually going up at trying to work around the circle. So that way, when you come back to 5 to 6, you're lifting much more than you were previously. That's always the goal. But again, it depends. There's so many variables again to that person, their calories, what they're running, there's so many things. And I'm, you've talked lightly, but I'm like insanely OCD. So like,
yeah, I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah. I dissect every little thing. So, and I train hundreds of people, and I literally talk to all of them, not all on the phone, but like, they have 24/7 access to me no matter what. You guys know I don't sleep. So I change up things constantly all the time. People can text me right in the middle of their workout, say, hey bro, I'm doing overhead press and I'm feeling this. Boom, switch it up. It just depends, honestly. But again, switching things up here and there, to enhance, the muscle and not get stuck in a stagnant, area. I mean, I think is great. But again, it comes down to the individual, because some guys genetically, they find a certain way of training a muscle like I did. And I did the same workout for 7-8 years. So it just depends. Ronnie Coleman trained the same way his whole, as soon as he went into bodybuilding. So it just depends on the person.
From a strength, from an athletic perspective, I believe that HIT training from Dorian Yates is like a very basic way to look at training. I feel like it's maybe the best way to injure yourself is to keep the same exercises and try to fail as quickly as possible and be as minimal as you can in the workout and be consistent. So one way to avoid that, for example, if you had that kind of training, is what you guys are talking about, periodizing your training. All powerlifters, all arm wrestlers, all real sports people, athletes, periodize their training, because it gives you an opportunity to recover throughout the cycle. It gives you an opportunity to peak and all those kind of things. It's
because your
interesting.
joints rest too. Your joints, your tendons, yeah.
And your central nervous system gets wrecked bad by training that way.
Exactly. You have to be yeah, absolutely. And then the other side of it, though, is Milos's protocol. To be honest, when I look at it, I'm like, what the hell is this? Because you want to get blood into the muscle. You're not trying to be an endurance athlete. I mean, I don't know what the point of getting in the blood in the muscle and then doing endurance light weights is constantly, unless you're trying to burn endurance fibers, which
you're 100% right, dude. I know so many people who get smaller with him. Like literally they get smaller, dude, and they're using like 50 units of Slim.
Hidetada Yamagishi is a perfect example. His arms keep getting smaller every time he competes.
And look at Milos, dude. Look at Milos. He had small ass arms too when he competed.
Very interestingly. Okay, next question is from Mix Shake and Bake Falafel Cart. He says, I like the what the F does Hani do moments of the podcast. Blue, Bostin has answered this several times. What does Hani do that's so different, drug, training, and diet-wise, that's unique to other coaches, seeing as you've been coached by him in your pro days? Also, just to comment, I noticed that his guys have a different look to them. I've noticed when Derek and Dallas switched to him, that they looked super full, yet with very thin skin. I actually think the fullest Dallas has looked was with Hani. What do you think, Blue?
Yeah, that's a good question. The thing that Hani does that's, whatever they want to call magic, is the same type of thing that I practice every day. And that's literally doing different things for every individual, based on the moment. There is no set, I think of it as like different types of cars. We don't have a favorite tool. We have many different tools. We just know when to use a certain tool at the right time. Certain tools may work at a certain time, may not work later. But that's the wonderful thing about Hani, is that he does everything based on that individual. What he had me do was specifically for me. Other things he had done for other people were completely different. And that's what I truly loved about it. And so when I, went into this professionally, a decade ago, I wanted to do the same thing. There is no one way to cycle, to eat, to train. These are different tools for different individuals at different times. That's the magic of knowing how to orchestrate these things instinctively. I think that's, what I loved about how he coached.
Chad is like sort of the opposite of that, huh? Chad, I've seen a lot of his programs. They're very similar.
Chad these days. Back in the 90s, he was probably a little different. But Blue is right. Hani only takes on a certain individual. He's turned down more people than he's taken on.
That's very true.
And he doesn't even train people these days. But yeah, Chad on the other hand, I think back then, in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s and stuff, I think he was more individualized. And I think he just got so burnt out with coaching that he is more of a Dave Palumbo type of, I'll send you a program and, make adjustments, if I need to,
But he has certain principles that are well known. He has some guiding, high protein, vitamins, a lot of kind of vitamins.
I mean, I don't know if I've sent you his programs, but if you ever want to see him, I have them.
I have a few. Yeah, I don't think you sent me them, but I've gotten a few, and they're impressive from a biological standpoint. They hit everything. mTOR is totally turned on the whole time.
And I've seen his programs for pro bodybuilders. He does not do anything crazy with drugs. Like it's not. I would say 1 out of 10. It's like a 7. It's the normal stuff that people are doing. It's not anything crazy. You know what I mean? But the thing is he simplifies it. For instance, his cycles. If you hire these guys like AJ Sims or these coaches, they'll have you taking 14, 15, 16 different drugs. Well, Chad will only have you on a few different things that work at good dosages. So it's more old school approach,
Yeah, and he cycles the second compound usually.
Correct, yeah. Always.
I think that's the most important thing, is finding out what works for that individual at that time and utilizing that, and other things that do not work, get rid of them. Everybody is designed differently.
Yeah, that's a part of becoming great in anything, right? Sometimes becoming great isn't just adding on to yourself, even your skills, but removing parts of yourself.
Absolutely.
Right? Bruce Lee actually said this. I remember there was a beautiful quote from him, right? Yeah,
Yes.
that was cool. Okay, so another question he has for you is, he says, another question for Blue. IVGH, need I explain more? How did that come to be, and what's your favorite brand? Did you mention something about IV? Is that for me? I don't know.
Yeah, it's something that I messed with, at a certain time. I work with a lot of doctors. So it was a doctor that I was talking with, and he's like, and I was getting ready, it was for my last show. And we were talking about, the bioavailability, of, administration with GH, and I was running Serostim. And so we had talked about it. And at first I tried it, and I was just doing, my vein through my forearm. And then I was doing 4 IUs 4 times a day. And then I broke it down even further. I think it was like 3 IUs 5 times a day. I did it like for, I think 8 or 10 weeks. I don't remember exactly. I would have to get out my logs, but faster uptake. I mean, that's what it's all about, the administration and, the impact, I believe that, the bioavailability of like sub-Q is reduced a little bit, and it's not as reduced when you're doing it intramuscular. And then when you're doing it directly to the source, you're getting that impact in a concentrated form. But that's just something that I tried. But I was also on a lot of other things at that time that could have, contributed to my look at that time. It was pretty crazy because at that time, I was running the main things like, Prop, that's, the only test I use, Masteron, Trend, Winnie, stuff like that, just normal doses. But I was also using insulin around my workout. And it was pretty crazy because my low days of carbs during that time was 500. My middle of the week, I would do 800. And then on Saturday, I would do 1250. I could never do that in the off season. That was just absolutely insane. But I think just, things working synergistically, my metabolic state, everything was just insane. So it was something at that time, with my doctor friend that we wanted to try and document. I don't recommend any of my clients doing it. I've had a couple of clients try it, and we documented, but honestly, I think the difference with, bioavailability is not that, not that big of a difference.
Well, if you're shooting it 4 times a day, I think there's a benefit, but I guarantee most clients are not going to be able to afford 16. I use a farm GH.
Yeah, it was a one-time thing. It was between 8 and 10 weeks, and he wanted to document it as well because he's a head internal medicine doctor. So he wanted to document things, so it was kind of cool. And at that time, it was, obviously my physique was, very, it was highly responsive. So it was something to document, but it was a one-time thing. My wife was pissed, called me a crackhead, but I'll never do it again.
So 2 questions. Why do you prefer prop?
Prop?
Yeah. Testosterone prop.
Prop seems to work with me best. I believe that esters, can affect, people, even serotonin wise, I think, because fast or longer esters with me, which I tried in the beginning, I would always get anxiety. Even when I
completely agree with you. I believe that shorter esters are always superior. But
yes.
The problem with the prop is this solvent issue or whatever. But other than that, it's obviously ideal. Comes in and out of your system. You get a little bit of a break, and that keeps your receptors sensitized to the testosterone.
Yeah. I love prop. It always worked great for me. Because back in the day, I tried Saucinon, got anxiety a day later. Enanthate, got anxiety. Cypionate, got anxiety. That's partially the reason I'm like so OCD with like dissecting a person before recommending anything, just because I fear them going through some of those same things that I did from messing around with different medications. So when I first hooked up with Hani, he wanted me, on sauce and some other things in the beginning, and it just was not happening. And, again, everything play by play. He's like, okay, let's try some faster esters. I want you to just mess with, some prop and tiny bit of EQ and some anadrol. And that was butter. I mean, it was amazing for me. It worked perfectly. And I cycled that same way in my off season for, the next 10, 11, 12 years. I mean, so, and then, you know, in 2011, I tried, I tried growth hormone and insulin. And then I found out that I was like hyper responsive, like very, very responsive. So that was just, you know, kind of my, you know, my bread and butter there.
So another thing is that, I mean, the main concern obviously with injecting IV, just for people to know, because I'm very involved in the addiction community and all that, the main issue honestly is that you may, if you're shooting 4 times a day, like you were for a short period of time, that's something else. But say you were doing it all year, you're going to damage your blood vessels. Seriously.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely
that's
agree.
The main
absolutely
issue.
Agree. Yeah, it was a one-time thing to experiment. I never did it again after that. We just documented it. You know, it was, you know, and I'm not going to lie, it was kind of a creepy, you know, style of doing things. Like I said, my wife was pretty upset, but, you know, we wanted to document some things, and we, you know, never, ever, ever do it with something generic. This is with pharmaceutical, or you're going to end up, you know, getting some dirty blood and you'll end up in the hospital. So, I mean,
I used to IV hella Chinese growth.
Did you really?
Hell yeah. Dude, I've IV'd everything. I IV so much shit. I IV my TB500, my BP7, my stem cells. I IV so much shit these days.
Oh, man. Be careful with that, bro. Be careful.
I reuse insulin needles too.
There's no. So Lord of Phantasm says coaches like Matt Jansen recommend metformin. And by the way, this is coming ahead of the question about insulin, about blood glucose levels. Remember, Bostin. So before that, though, coaches like Matt Jansen recommend metformin for all his athletes, whilst others do not due to the effects on mTOR. Thoughts? Can the effects be counterfeit? I don't know what he's trying to say. Counteracted with insulin? Or he said counterfeit, but I don't know what he's trying to say with insulin.
I think Blue likes metformin too, right?
I like metformin in certain situations. Yeah, I mean, it lowers, you know, the production of the glucose in the liver, you know, the absorption in the intestines, you know, and, you know, you have lower blood sugar. That's going to lead to, you know, lower, release of insulin by your pancreas, and, you know, it's, you know, you can burn more fat and keep things in check. I think it's really good in certain situations for a certain individual, but not always.
Yeah, I completely agree with that.
Yeah. So I've been using metformin for 4 years straight, and I stopped using metformin recently because I started exercising and I care a little bit about my strength impact. So just for people to know the general consensus on metformin among the longevity community. If you're working out very intensely, like you're doing a lot of cardiovascular exercise, the metformin is a mitochondrial toxin. It will limit your respiratory chain and your ability, because of a couple of reasons, including lactic acid buildup. Another reason, it will limit your athletic performance. It certainly will. If you don't notice, it's because you're not very strong or you're not very focused on your lifts. It will limit your performance. Personally, now I take metformin only on my off days. The half-life is still quite long, but I feel fine on the next workout day. The only reason I wouldn't take it while working out is because of its inhibition potentially of your athletic performance personally. But I think everything that Blue said, of course, mainly about the effects on carbohydrate, metabolism in your body is really, and the effects on the liver as an organ are really beneficial. But will metformin turn off your mTOR while you're on androgens? No, it will not. We know that. People don't develop higher uric acid levels while on metformin, while on a lot of androgens. And uric acid levels will always go up when AMP kinase turns on and mTOR turns off. You're not going to turn off mTOR if you're on androgens and eating a lot of protein and taking metformin. You're going to get the blood sugar effects, the liver effects. Even if you're on 2 grams of metformin, you're not going to see much of an effect there. But you will get worse exercise performance.
Did Hani ever have you run metformin in contest prep, Blue?
No.
No, yeah.
No, he didn't even. At first, he didn't even want me messing with insulin, like until he saw how it affected me. Then he was like, "Okay, keep doing what you're doing." I mean, everything was pretty minimal. You know, he didn't want me ever touching synthol, any of that stuff. No.
Blue, were you naturally skinny?
I grew up wrestling like most of my life, so I was always. I mean, I won state in 8th grade at 78 pounds. I mean, I was really small. I won the city championships at 98 pounds my freshman year. Like,
Oh my
I was
God.
really small. The heaviest I was my senior year was 123. So, I mean, I was always small, but like, you know, I always had like bigger calves and bigger forms and stuff like that because I was really short. And I always was very intrigued by bodybuilding, but it was one of those things in my time of, you know, wrestling, you know, collegiate and everything that, you know, they weren't big on us weight training because they wanted us, you know, so explosive and wiry and flexible. So I always stayed away from it. I didn't, you know, start lifting to way later after I already, you know, was, you know, had a wife and 2 kids. And I was like, you know, I'm going to go to the gym, you know, to get a break.
How early did you get married?
I've been with my wife since 1998.
Wow, that's wonderful. We're a family channel. We really respect people that
dude.
people that are loyal to their wives. That's wonderful.
I am so big on loyalty and family. It's insane. That's why I'm really glad you said something, you know, about the thing with, you know, people saying things about Bostin. I really respect you saying that because I'm huge on loyalty, bro. Like I was raised differently, you know, very rough, you know, kind of upbringing, and loyalty's huge, you know, and especially now, you know, from a spiritual aspect, you have to be loyal, and your family is literally everything. It's a blessing from God in every aspect.
How did your rough upbringing bring out you? So I'm curious if this is what you're describing, because in my case, I didn't have like a close family connection. So my friends sort of became my family when I was young. I think that's how I read some books, and I started to realize there are some psychologists who think that like people who don't have strong or close relationship with their families end up developing a family network with their friends. They take their friends much more seriously. Is that what happened to you, sort of?
I think that you end up appreciating loyalty so much because you expect it to be from family sometimes. And then when it's not there and you find it with someone who is not blood related, then you really appreciate it in every way. I think that has a lot to do with it. And especially like, you know, being raised in a more like, kind of darker, rougher, you know, area, and, you know, in a dysfunctional family and stuff like that, and seeing things that a kid shouldn't see, things like that, you know, you end up becoming extremely loyal. I mean, you know, and I've always been that way. And again, OCD, which we've talked about a little bit, I'm my own worst critic in every way. So if I'm not loyal, it'll beat me up. You know what I'm saying? It keeps you in check. You know, that's where I think OCD, you know, serves people well. You know, you're always watching everything you're doing. Yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Let's talk about this ADHD OCD thing. But before we do, which city did you grow up in?
Portland, Oregon.
Oh, okay, cool, interesting. Actually, that's funny. I was just in my hairdresser's a week ago. It's a funny story. I went to I have this cool hairdresser. He's a Jewish guy, and before he was standing outside the barber shop when I went to him. So I was like, "What are you doing?" He was on his phone, and he was very angry. I was like, "What happened to you?" He's like, "This guy on YouTube is arguing with me." I said, "You have a channel?" He said, "No, there's a guy in the comment section. He's arguing with me." I was like, "Bro, you can't get angry about this stuff. If I did this, I'd be spending all day dealing with this." Anyway, I was talking to him for a bit, and he turns out to be from Portland, Oregon, and he's from a Sureño gang from Portland. I didn't know that there were gangs, Trace gangs from LA and Oregon. I don't know if you've ever heard of them.
Yeah.
There are, huh? There are gangs there.
Oh, there's lots of gangs. I mean, some of my closest friends were all in gangs. Like I was around that my whole life. I was around all that stuff.
Wow, fascinating. Me too when I was growing up. Okay, so
that's what I'm saying.
So when you say OCD, let's talk about this because it's a fun thing. And I feel sympathetic also because I have similar things. So before we talk about the ADHD, what do you classify as OCD? Do you have like rituals?
My obsessive compulsive disorder, I believe is partially genetic. You know, my dad had it a little bit. It runs through his family. You know, there's good things that come out of it. But you know, it can go to a dangerous area, you know. Mine isn't like washing hands. Mine is dissecting everything almost too far, you know, instead of, you know, standing back and enjoying a painting, you know. So I'm using that as, you know, metaphorically, you know, with every situation. Sometimes people, instead of enjoying the whole view of something, an aspect or situation, sometimes they dissect one part, they get lost in that instead of, you know, enjoying or understanding the whole of something. So my OCD will, you know, dissect something that's bothersome, and then, you know, you can go down the rabbit hole. You know, I like everything, you know, set up in a certain way, and it's definitely a blessing in disguise with how I coach and stuff. But, you know, years ago, it wasn't, you know, it wasn't very easy to live with.
So you're describing missing the forest for a crooked tree, something like that, right?
Yes.
And now, so classically, OCD is like what psychiatrists or neuroscientists think OCD is a really extreme form of anxiety disorder. When people have anxiety for long periods of time, and anxiety is governed by a part of the brain called the amygdala, this reptilian base of the brain. The amygdala is governed mainly by two hormones, adrenaline and GABA. Adrenaline activates it, the fight or flight response, the center of the brain. If your fight or flight response, especially as a kid, if you grow up with bad situations as a kid, what happens is the amygdala is strengthened and disconnected from the rest of the brain, not as receptive to GABAergic inhibition. So GABA inhibits the amygdala, adrenaline turns it on, and this develops anxiety. Now, when people have long periods of anxiety, often they develop something like PTSD, where they're, you know, I've had feelings like that also personally. But the other side is when they develop coping mechanisms. So, for example, I mean, this is a weird example, but like Hitler used to shower 4 times a day. He was very well known to be neurotic, extremely obsessed with cleanliness. I'm also not like Hitler, but very obsessed with cleanliness. And like, you know, I have certain things like that, but I wouldn't personally call it OCD because I don't have rituals. So the rituals is when that happens. So what they would usually call what you're describing is neuroticism. And I have a lot of neuroticism, unfortunately, as well. And the other thing that you mentioned, I think, is called rumination, which was when negative thoughts are disproportionately present in your stream of consciousness through the day. Like if you have one negative thought, it keeps coming.
Yeah, that's partially what kind of my OCD is kind of like classified in as the intrusive thought side of things. You know, certain thoughts that come in, you dissect it, and, you know, you're just on the merry-go-round and it just grows. I've been on fluvoxamine since the end of 2006. And, you know, that combined with, you know, seeing an amazing, you know, doctor, you know, literally changed my life.
It's funny that we're on the same medication with fluvoxamine, which is, of course, any really in the know psychiatrist, when they pick an SSRI for somebody with neuroticism and ruminating deep thoughts, will try to pick fluvoxamine because it's somehow just known to be a little bit more successful for that. But it's interesting that when you upregulate neurogenesis, not just serotonin, these rumination thoughts often will stop. I mean, if you try cerebrolizin, for example, very extreme, shouldn't do it long term, but it's basically growth hormone for the brain. And it basically gives you that initial feeling of having a strong SSRI signaling. You'll find the rumination sort of backs away from your head. But the other side of this is the ADHD, right? For me personally, when I upregulate dopamine and noradrenaline from a Adderall or dextroamphetamine, which, by the way, I prefer dextroamphetamine, less neuroticism and less like. But anyway, when you do that, you end up in the back to the neurotic situation, right? It works against you a little bit. Do you notice that?
I only have used Luvox. That's it.
Oh, you don't use any medication for ADHD?
No, I don't have that at all. No.
Oh, I thought you had ADHD
no,
as well.
No, I don't
Bostin
have that
told
at
me
all.
that.
No, I only have.
No, you said you wanted to talk about ADHD though, right?
No, I wanted to talk about OCD.
Okay. I got confused. Oh, so you only take fluvoxamine?
Yeah, that's it. I just have OCD.
Fascinating. So there's a drug maybe you should check out. Really works well for anxiety. It's prescribed in Europe for anxiety and for bipolar disorder also. But it's prescribed in the US under 2 conditions. So you can go to your doctor and say, I have migraines and I used to take this drug before at 2 grams during the day, 1 gram. Usually they'll give you 1 gram tablet, extended release twice a day. It's called sodium valproate, aka Depakote. Have you ever tried it?
I've heard of that. The Luvox, honestly, with me, like works amazingly.
But
like
the scary thing is you don't sleep well. That's why I'm thinking, how could it work that well?
Well, see, that's the weird thing. See, I've always slept well until I started getting so deep into the coaching. Like, you know, normal people, when they get a little tired. I mean, because normally with Luvox, before I was coaching so seriously, I slept well. Everything was perfect.
Oh,
But now with training hundreds of people, my body, it's crazy, dude. I can stay up for 2 days and feel normal. Absolutely normal, bro. It is the craziest thing. I'm still mentally sharp, everything. And I'll take a nap, 3-hour nap, and I'm energized, ready to go. But it took me a long time to get like this because, I mean, say 5 years ago, say I would stay up for 24 hours, you know, I would feel really wrecked, and it would even throw off my serotonin levels, you know. But now it's nothing, man. I can just keep going and going. So that's why it's strange, but my body is just kind of trained to live the way I'm living right now.
So I had a lot of sleeping issues when I was in high school. So I used to pull what are all-nighters all the time for no reason and just go to school without sleeping. I actually think it's one of the reasons I'm 5'10" and not taller, but I'm the same height as my father. He's completely Arab. It makes no sense. My mother's white. I should have been a bit taller, but anyway. So I think it had something to do with it, but I did that a lot then. And I eventually got to the point where I'd not sleep for 3 days, 5 days. I've not slept for 6 days. The problem is that people who have night shifts die on average 5 years earlier. And a night shift is not nearly as bad as staying up a couple of days. So just you know, I mean, you might be killing yourself. You know.
No,
genuine.
I know. Trust me, I know. I've talked to my doctor a lot about stuff. It's just so hard for me to let go. That's my thing. People are amazed when they text me. You know, I'm working with guys in over 27 different countries. People can text me at any time, and I text them back. And they're literally shocked. They're like,
I have
dude,
such difficulty with this. I try to do what you're doing. I'm always available. I have a 1-hour call with everybody every week. I only have 6 clients. Even that is like difficult for me. Like I have a 30-person wait list and I can't accept because I'm scared because I don't want to not be there for them. So that sense of responsibility to not be a crappy coach, you know, and then you end up being totally there all the time. So I totally empathize with that. Okay, let's move to the next question, which is Jason D. Frost. He says, why does Bleu have no regards for health? So this is not an attack on you, but Bostin.
Oh yeah, this is the comment.
I'm going to read it. So why does Bleu have no regards for health when it comes to elevated fasting blood sugars from loads of carbs and high dose GH? I know someone that is very knowledgeable, that is a very knowledgeable coach that was working with Bleu, and he was taking 15 units of GH and eating so much food he was having to blend it and drink it. Well, long story short, he contacted Bleu about his fasted blood sugar being around 100, which is pre-diabetic, and Bleu just told him to increase metformin when he was already on 1,000 milligrams of metformin twice a day. I know Bleu won't answer this because I called him out for it, and he deleted the comment and blocked me. Well, just so you know, buddy, if you write something nicely, wait, I just want to say something. If you write something nicely to people, they won't block you. But if you write it in a rude way, we get too many rude things. I would block you too. If you write it in a nice way, I bet he wouldn't have done that. Anyway, let's continue. But he says nice things afterwards. But he says, but someone, he deleted me. So, but someone needs to hold these coaches accountable. At some point, it needs to be about what's best for the client. Then I asked him, Bostin responded, then I asked him, Leo, I said, explain what you think should be done if somebody has high blood sugars, Jason. So he said, lower GH, lower carbs. If you're already on 1 gram of metformin twice a day, then add in berberine. Okay, let me correct that real quick. Berberine only lasts for 3 months. In all studies, the effects are much weaker than metformin, and there's no reason to combine them unless you want PCSK9 inhibition, which is also very light. And then he said, or GDA with carb meals, increase cardio. There are many things that can be done, but just simply increase metformin when you're already on 2 grams and continue to drive fasted blood sugar up instead of lowering carb intake, and GH making people diabetics for bodybuilding is ignorant in my opinion. Then he said, I'm not just talking about out of my ass with no medical background. I've been a medic for 10 years at both the hospital and FD. I've worked with many doctors, including ER docs, general practitioners, hormone replacement docs, nephrologists, and I try to pick their brains about bodybuilding related problems, and most are pretty open to share knowledge. Not saying all docs are super knowledgeable in this field, but most have some input because they know how the body works, even if it's not related to hormones and bodybuilding. And they said, in Bostin, I know he's your boy, and I'm not trying to hate on him because he's way better coach than me and creates monsters, no doubt, but I just can't agree with this method at all. Seems reckless. So, Bostin, why don't you respond first, then I'll respond, then you.
Yeah, so I wanted to respond to this. So, I know Bleu will agree with me, but you might not agree with me on this. So,
I will.
Okay.
You'll see.
So, when you're bodybuilding and you have a goal in mind, and because I've been in this is a bodybuilder's mindset like me and Bleu. You want to do everything possible to maximize fat loss, to maximize muscle gain, to maximize all this, right? And you're at that level. So he said that Bleu had this guy on 15 units of growth hormone. I was working with a top coach that wanted me running 21 units of growth hormone. And so these things are not uncommon. So I don't want anyone to think like, oh, Blue recommended 15. You know, this guy could have been a good top amateur trying to turn pro. He could have been a pro bodybuilder. Who knows? But the thing that made me laugh about this is we know as bodybuilders, there's going to be health repercussions, you know, taking stuff like this, 15 units of growth hormone, insulin, metformin, all this stuff. It's mainly genetic with your blood sugars. I know guys that can take 15 units of GH, not take any metformin or insulin, and have decent blood sugars. Then there's guys that can take 3 to 4 units of growth hormone and their blood sugars are through the roof, right? But the thing that made me laugh about this is like blood sugar was really never talked about too much. And obviously high blood sugar is bad. But what made me laugh about this is this guy's on 15 units of blood sugar and his fasting blood sugar is only 100.
I know.
Like that's not even fucking bad. Like you know when you take growth hormone, it's going to raise your blood sugar. You know what I mean? And it just made me laugh. Like to me, I'd be worried if your fasted blood sugar was like 130, 120, 140, but 100 is like normal. Like to me, if you're on tons of growth hormone, and tons of growth hormone builds freaks. People hire Blue to build freaks. So if somebody's going to hire you to fucking get them huge and they're complaining about 100 blood sugars, that's just fucking ridiculous. And the person that made this whole blood sugar thing crazy, like, oh, you need to have 85 blood sugar, is Palumbo. And then everyone jumped on that bandwagon, you know? So that's my input on it.
Okay, let's start with that. So Palumbo, the reason why he talks about blood sugar is because I believe, this is just my speculation, that Palumbo is still using growth hormone. And recently, that's the truth. Recently, he's been noticing that he said his blood sugar at night is high. So he recommended his protein product. That's where it came from. It's nothing to do with blood sugars. It's because this guy is probably, if you look at him, probably using growth hormone still, and he's getting fasting blood. And so he mentions it. Now, let's talk about that. Is 100 high? No, it's not. It's not at all high. In fact, I had higher blood sugars running less GH because I have a lot of polymorphisms that make me prone to diabetes. If you don't have the polymorphism, and by the way, you can learn those. That's one of the few things you can learn from 23andMe pretty well. Look at your diabetes thing. They'll give you a percentage. Mine is like 60% likely to get diabetes. So I know this because I'm half Arab. So it's really genetically determined. And second of all, 100 fasting blood sugar is not harmful to your body. So let's talk about how that affects. So if you guys study diabetes, what you'll find is originally people thought that diabetics were dying mainly because of their blood sugar levels being really high, 200, 250, 300. Yep. And so what they did was they invented insulin and they thought that would solve the issue. The scary thing is it didn't. Diabetics would lose their hands and feet and their eyes if they didn't control their blood sugar, but they would die at the same time as if they tightly controlled their blood sugar with insulin. That's really scary. That shows you two things. Number one, insulin is really harmful for your health, being hyperinsulinemic or insulin resistant, both. And the other thing it shows you is that the blood sugars, while they may make you go blind if you're at 200, 300, whatever, that's not so much the issue. The issue is you're eating so much sugar. Whether you keep it in your bloodstream or not, the sugar has a lot of impacts on your growth in your body, so many other impacts. And then the insulin resistance and the high insulin levels, those are the three issues, not the blood sugar level. So for your second comment, I understand that you're a medic and so on, but you really seem to, I'm not trying to be offensive, but you seem to really not understand the actual danger is not from the blood sugar, unless you're at 200, 300, it's from the insulin resistance and hyperinsulinemia and eating carbohydrates. If you guys don't know, here David Sinclair and all those guys talk about fasting. If you calorically restrict a rodent, he lives 40 years longer. What they 40% longer lifespan. But what they don't tell you is that if you give a rodent, a certain species of rodent, a ketogenic diet, he also lives 40% longer. That's how harmful having high carbohydrate diets can be, even in rodents as well as in humans. That has nothing to do with high fasting blood sugars, not because they're diabetic. The other rodents are diabetic. No, it's because carbohydrates do a lot of things to the body, especially when they're at high doses, when they come with insulin, right? So even your natural insulin. So that's the first thing. So I know, Jason, you're not trying to attack him, but this is not nonsensical. The other thing is this, like I agree with Bostin. Bodybuilders who are using growth hormone and using insulin or just growth hormone, you've made a decision, dude. Your cells in your body can only divide 40 to 60 times. I've recently been taught by a subscriber, this is called the Hayflick limit. You can go on Wikipedia, read about it. Those cells, when they reach that point, it's a dead end. Senescence or apoptosis. You take growth hormone, you're burning the candle at both ends for your life. So you must have a reason you're taking growth hormone, especially if it's taking more than 2 units. And even 2 units will do this too. You're not supposed to have high growth hormone later in life. So you make a choice. I am an athlete or I'm a bodybuilder and I have a goal. I want harm reduction, but you're telling have 100 fasting blood sugar. You're going to get that if you take GH 15 units one way or another. And GH 15 units, the truth is, it does a lot of interesting things to you. It really does. I've tried that before. I don't have good genetics. Weird things happened to me when I took 15 units. You know, it's one of the things GH 15 was telling that's true. 8 to 15 units does do interesting things. The other thing I want to mention, if you want to watch your blood sugar, don't think about fasting blood sugar, guys. Anyone listening to this can go buy a Dexcom. You can buy it online, Dexcom 6, and you can know your blood sugar 24 hours a day. And you can see how your meals affect you, and you can really know what's going on. And the second thing you can do is go to a doctor and do an oral glucose tolerance test. That's the only way you're going to know if you're insulin resistant. It's not about your fasting blood sugars. Before you get to 100, you're going to be insulin resistant years before, unless it's just from drugs. What do you think, Blue?
Absolutely. And that's exactly why I didn't engage in that conversation, because I have people that say things all the time. I appreciate the guy's concern and passion behind his statement, but he has no clue what he's talking about. You know, all of us know that. He has no clue. You're a medic, that's great. I mean, but in this type of, you know, science and environment, he doesn't know what he's talking about. There's times to press on the gas, and there's times to let off. 100 for a fasting glucose by taking that much GH is absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
And a fasted glucose is only one piece of the puzzle. Like Leo was saying, you have to monitor the entire, you know, everything in your life. Like, that is just one little piece. And we're not talking about how long was that guy sleeping? When was he checking it? Let's talk about cortisol. And then we can go into much other areas. His blood sugar could have been even lower. We don't know. You see what I'm saying? So I appreciate where he's coming from. It's just, you're always going to have guys like that that are very passionate about something, but I can't engage with somebody like that just, I mean, knows nothing.
Well, let's talk about where does he get it from? I mean, he's not totally wrong. The issue is this: the medical profession has not. They don't read. I have a video on the statistical illiteracy of doctors. It's a well-known fact. People from quantitative backgrounds like me have mostly heard about it. Doctors not only can't understand studies, mostly, and the majority, but also they don't read studies usually when they graduate from medical school. So they have an expiration date to their knowledge. They've been taught us. So the problem with that is that this insulin resistance, hyperinsulinemia, all this stuff has come out in the last 20 years. A lot of doctors are still thinking glucose control. It's the glucose that is killing them. It's not the glucose, it's the insulin resistance. And so once you realize that, you're fasting, and by the way, 100 fasting glucose. I mean, I was at 105.
That was a joke. When I read that shit, when he was like, he's on 15 units of growth hormone and his fasted sugars are 100, I started laughing.
Hey, this is the thing. What me and Bostin were laughing about the other day. So that's the greatest complaint. I've trained thousands and thousands of people across the globe. And there's a really bad rumor going around that someone woke up with 100 on their fasted glucose. Why other coaches are killing people. They're actually having clients die, but I had a guy wake up with 100 on his fasted glucose. It's almost comedy.
Well, not just that, but I want to dispel this idea that you can, I mean, maybe you disagree with me, Blue, but I genuinely just want to be honest with the audience. You have two choices when you grow up. When you're 20 years old, 25 years old, you can continue to grow and die young, or you can stop growing, take metformin, eat less, whatever, and try to die much later. It's not about your physical size, but it's about your cells getting to that Hayflick limit and becoming senescent or dead. And it's not even about just cancers. If you're going to be a bodybuilder, no matter what harm reduction methods you use, like the things I suggest, ARBs, SDMA, all these kind of things, or fasting or whatever, you're still going to be at a worse health outcome than otherwise. And 100 fasting blood glucose is not what we're worried about. It's left ventricular hypertrophy, cardiomegaly, kidney disease. Those are the things we really look at more than diabetes. What diabetes is scary about is maybe kidney disease from having high blood sugars, but not 100, 200, 250.
Exactly. That's why, like I say, everything in moderation. You have to instinctively know when to press forward and to come back. So, I mean, It's okay. I appreciate the concern.
Okay. Viva la Ethan says, why does Blue have so many pirate figures in the background of his podcast? I've also been wondering that.
Well, I'm in the dining room right now, so this is where all the medieval soldiers are. There's 4 of them in here, but you only can see one. But no, I'm just a big kid, bro. I collect a lot of things. In my office, it's all pirates. So I mean, there's huge boats and different things like that. I actually just ordered a life-size great white shark. It's life-size. It's I believe 13 feet long. So
is it a model or like a skeleton?
It's made out. It's like a resin like model. Yeah, and it comes on this stand, so it stands, I think, about 7 feet in the air. I mean, it's life size. It's pretty cool. I'm a kid, dude. I mean, my new son will be born next week, and I named him Anakin after Star Wars. So I mean, I'm kind of nerdy. Thank you very much.
Oh, my daughter will be born in 8 weeks, hopefully. Also, my first daughter.
Oh,
my
congrats,
first
brother.
Yeah, I'm very excited as well. Yeah,
it's a beautiful blessing.
So when I was a kid, I had a friend who had his father was like a cool guy, and he is in his 50s, but he used to collect like antique guns and swords from and knives from different like 1600s, 1500s. I've always wanted to do that. I think I should start collecting them and putting them on my walls and stuff. I'm a little kid too. I have like comic books, and I can't read them anymore, but I look at the pictures sometime, reminisce.
Well, I didn't know if you knew or whatnot. See, that's what I did before I went into bodybuilding. I was a professional penciler for comics.
Are you serious? Wow.
Yes, so that's a whole other thing. I didn't know if you knew about that. That's part of my OCD of dissecting like anatomy and lighting and perspective. My dad was an artist for Hewlett-Packard. His mom was a famous painter. So that's another genetic thing.
Wow.
Well, you should show him some of your drawings. He's a fucking good artist.
I'm obsessed with my favorite is Seth MacFarlane from Spider-Man. I don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Seth used to MacFarlane?
McFar something. Seth.
You're talking about Todd Mcfarlane.
Todd McFarlane. Sorry, not Seth. Okay, there was another Seth, someone else. There's been years, but the Spider-Man 80s guy, and he was my favorite. He also did some X-Men, I think, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I got some crazy stories on that. I actually met with McFarlane in 1999. I was going to be the penciler on Spawn.
Wow, yeah, Spawn. I had all his Spawn issues.
Yeah.
He was my hero when I was a kid.
Yeah, I was like a prodigy in the art field. I was drawing for Dark Horse Comics at 18 years old.
Wow, I respect that so much. I used to spend when I was a kid, I was like a bit, I was like sort of bullied at home. So I used to go into the bathroom, lock the door, sit on the floor and read comics. And I used to look at all the drawings and how the hand is shaped, but I was never talented enough. I would have loved to get that off. That's so respectable. I really love that. And I really believe comic books are such a great resource for kids. They give them the opportunity to imagine.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. I mean, I was always intrigued by the anatomy and all that stuff, and watching my dad draw as a child and everything. I was like going to bed looking at Frank Frazetta paintings. I had it was just very cool.
That's very cool. Okay, so Yusta says, I saw Bostin's interview with Blue. His cycle at his biggest was 400 prop, 525 trend with some EQ. That's fairly low. How do you compensate for such a low drug dose? Because he looked like a effing freak and had no GH gut. Is he one of those less is more with gear like Aceto, or just a genetic freak? And the secret to those 5 inches gained on your arms? Every guy who's ever picked up a barbell wants to know. And then some people responded that he's a very good responder to insulin and GH, but you mentioned that.
Yeah. I'm always honest about it. I'm always honest. It comes back to that same thing, that I was limited to what I could use because of anxiety, and Prop was, what worked for me. I wish I could have used other things. I probably would have been a lot bigger. I couldn't use them. And then when I tried insulin and growth hormone, it was just an explosion, literally, because people saw me in 2009, and I was, around 150 something on stage when I got my pro card. And then they saw me, in 2011 at my first pro show, and I put on, 32 pounds, and I was just as lean. And the only difference was trying growth hormone and insulin the beginning of that cycle for that show. That's how crazy it was. I didn't do anything different. But that's what works for me. That's why I say, these things are medications, and everybody, genetically responds a bit different.
Do you have a 23andMe done?
No.
Ancestry.com?
No, my son and my daughter do though, and I've thought about getting one. Yeah.
Okay, we'd be able to find out a little bit from that if you want. So I was just curious to see your IGF-1 receptor gene to see if you're a very good response. If your IGF-1 receptor is very active, like mine is deficient. Most people I check out are not homozygous for the active form, but maybe you are, or maybe you had like low GH and insulin levels naturally, which would make sense since you were smaller as a high schooler. Exactly. So that would
I was very small. So that's a very good. That could be definitely possible.
So DPI6 asks, he said, I'm afraid of getting the shot while on a blast. Also want to just thank Bostin, member of the page, and he always gets back to emails fast. So I wanted to mention that, like, it's an interesting situation. I wrote some notes. So number one, women are predisposed toward autoimmune diseases. That's the concern he's getting, right? You're getting the COVID vaccine and you're concerned of repercussions from that. So the repercussions there come from an autoimmune response when you get a virus, like that, what they call the cytokine, whatever they were calling that thing. So women are predisposed to that and protected from atherosclerosis. And this is because their immune system is focused on TH2, T helper 2 cells, as well, where T regulator is predominant. Men have the opposite. They're predisposed against autoimmune diseases in natural androgen levels and predisposed toward atherosclerosis because they have TH1 cells that are dominant. The thing is, I've obviously talked about this a lot because I got Crohn's disease after stopping my steroid use. And I think that there is some autoimmune diseases that come with high androgen levels. And interestingly, there's actually an academic paper on this I found randomly, but I never knew about it before. So there's some evidence that using high androgen levels could weaken the integrity of your immune system. So I just wanted to mention that. Some interesting thing also I wanted to mention. Serotonin and melatonin shift you toward TH1 responses, which is the masculine responses, interestingly. And norepinephrine and glucocorticoids like cortisol shift you towards TH2 responses. So I don't know if it's because of the androgen increasing our adrenaline levels, shifting us toward more of a female pattern, despite the fact that when we get to very high androgen levels, you know what I mean? So basically, I wouldn't really worry unless you have a really weak immune system. I got COVID like twice. I got the injection, the vaccine. My knuckles started hurting me for no reason. Obviously, an autoimmune response.
COVID put a bunch of people in kidney failure too.
It does all kinds of weird stuff. Yeah, interesting stuff. Okay, so the next question is by Quadruple One MIC. He says, Ian Valier said Chris has never touched growth hormone or insulin. Thoughts? What do you think, Boston? I think Blue wants to comment on this.
Now that's a good question. So if they're said never touched, to me, never touched is never even used one dose of growth hormone or
that's what it
insulin.
means. Yeah.
I'm gonna call bullshit. On that. Now, does he use it in contest prep, and does he use it in the off season? Majority of the time, I would say absolutely not. But to say he's never touched it, I call bullshit on that. I think any professional athlete at that level is going to touch growth hormone. I don't know about insulin, but growth hormone, 100%.
I think that I've talked to Ian before. I would trust Ian. I don't know if he said never touched. Maybe he said not using. But Ian strikes me as a very honest person. Really honest person.
Yeah, but it just depends. If he says never touched it ever, I wouldn't believe that. If he's saying he doesn't currently use it, I would believe that.
What do you think, Blue? You want to comment on it?
Honestly, I'm not sure because again, I'm living proof that, and I've seen so many people hyper respond to certain types of drugs. I've seen it. Maybe he hasn't used it and maybe he just tried it. I don't know. He's got an amazing physique. I mean, that's all I know. He's got an amazing physique. I don't know him at all.
Blue, can I ask you something? Since you coach so many people and they're around the world, which ethnicities do you notice respond the worst to growth hormone and insulin from that side? And are they usually the people that respond worst to androgens also?
What I end up seeing, because then you have to look at, the region that they're in as far as, the lucrative side of things, their life and all that type of stuff. So you don't always get to see, like say certain parts of India. I have some clients where, if I put it on their plan, get some red meat, they're like, yeah, that's not happening.
No, that's a problem.
So it depends on the person. Then, I have guys in, Kuwait or like my NFL guys, I can say, hey, I'm suggesting, 2 IUs of GH, and their response is, which brand would you like me to get? It's not like that all the time over here. So it really just depends. I mean, again, there's a lot of variables there, but I don't see anything as far as, a certain like race responding differently than others, except I can say that, most black guys can touch anything and explode.
Yeah,
My
for
experience
sure.
is that the opposite of them tends to be the people from South Asia and Far East Asia, meaning India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and then China, Japan. I feel like they have the opposite side of the African Americans' great potential for growth, usually.
Yeah, I think maybe sometimes in certain body parts, a lot of my Asian guys all have big ass legs, big calves, they get lean really easy. Of course, I think it comes down to, genetics again.
Yeah. I saw a chick at the gym today, randomly, this Korean woman. She wasn't highly muscular, but her quads were like big Rami's quads. They were just shaking as she walked. I was like, not that big, but they were huge. I was like, holy crap, that's huge quads, but no hamstrings and no glute whatsoever. So it was like an interesting combination of a leg proportion. By the way, Boston, somebody commented today he's very upset that you don't wash your hands after you use the bathroom on the show. I don't know why he's so upset, but he's very upset. So anyway, Edward Russo says, thoughts on running MK677 long-term for health benefits instead of pinning Pharma GH? What do you guys think? Oh, wait, and another one. Well, we'll go to that later. Okay, what do you guys think? MK677 instead of GH for health benefits.
Health benefits? I don't think there's any more health benefits to MK than growth hormone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think take the real thing.
Okay. So
in fact, MK677, I've seen it firsthand. It raises, you can't use it every day. It raises your blood sugar more than growth hormone, 100%.
Absolutely does. So MK677 is actually ghrelin. So just think of it as ghrelin. And ghrelin makes you insulin resistant because your body's starving. So your body wants to store whatever it has as fat. So that's one thing. The second thing is it raises prolactin more than growth hormone and raises cortisol more than growth hormone. And second of all, what ghrelin does is increase norepinephrine and dopamine in your brain. So health-wise, you might be stressing yourself out long-term. Second of all, growth hormone is not healthy, as I've mentioned many times. You may feel better, but that's certainly not healthy unless it's healthy in one way. It's good for your heart and for your brain to a degree, because without growth hormone, your heart will atrophy a little bit. But the bad side of it is it's very bad for cancers. So overall, it's probably something you should avoid. Well, the jury's still out, but probably something you should avoid. So the next thing is, Manzo Lo said, if you are going to give your kid GH under doctor supervision, what age would you start him at and how many IUs would you use? I just wanted to mention, I researched this a lot. It's interesting. The earliest study on humans with growth hormone, and by the way, they come from many things, right? You could have idiopathic short stature. You could have, dwarfism. You could have an early baby that's born too early. And so the earliest they've ever started on in a study is 9 months. There's two clear factors. The earlier they start and the higher the growth hormone dose, the more effective it is. But most studies start at around 4 years old. They don't start at 9 months, which I would imagine is very dangerous under certain situations. But in either case, that's what they do. And the doses they use, as I mentioned many times, is around 40 units per 100 kgs. Obviously, your kid is not 100. Your kid is not 100 kgs, and that's every other day. They're huge doses. Huge doses. That's what they really use. Now, in the case that the kid grows up with a growth hormone deficiency, which is one kind of the reasons they use it, they don't do this. They give them growth hormone and they look at their IGF-1 levels and they try to normalize their IGF-1 levels. But when the kid has idiopathic short stature or other things like that, they're just trying to get the kid as big as they can. So they use very high growth hormone levels to get major results. The next question is by Jakey Ryan. He says, hi, Leo. I recently watched a video about GHRP on Anabolic TV. What's Anabolic TV?
Oh, that's Tony Hughes' channel.
Okay, so he says, I can't remember who it was, but he stated that using CJC1295, DAC or short acting, with any GHRP compound will greatly increase the GH surge and over a longer period. He said running 100 micrograms each is plenty and anything more is just a waste of money. Not saying he's wrong, but was wondering, do any of you have an opinion on this? Cheers. I don't. Do you guys have an opinion on
Yes, so I don't know if Blue does, but that's an amazing combination, Leo. Like,
really?
Combining like MK677 with like a CJC DAC or like Hexerlin with CJC DAC, or IPAM, like the GHR with growth
Ipamorelin, yeah, whatever.
peptides. They're very strong, very strong.
So it does multiply the effects when you add.
100%.
I've never used CJC.
I grew my best, and I learned this from Mike Arnold. I grew my best when Mike Arnold had me doing a GHRH, growth hormone releasing peptide, and CJC DAC before bed. I was so full, and I didn't change anything. And I remember I removed it for a week, and I lost a lot of fullness. So the stuff definitely works.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. I agree with Bostin completely.
Oh, I never knew this. Thank you guys for teaching me this. I had no idea. Okay, so Antler says, Leo and you guys, how do you feel about the FDA banning NAC? What do you guys think about this?
Oh, dude, we stocked up on that because of my kidneys. Ariella, when she found out about it, she bought a shitload from eBay.
Derek bought 20 bottles. everyone's stocking up. What about you, Blue?
It's bullshit, don't you?
Oh, yeah. I have an opinion.
I personally don't use it, but I have so many clients that use it, and a lot of people are pissed. I know that. And they're running around grabbing as much as possible.
What's nice about NAC is it does two things, right? By itself, before it gets metabolized, it's a free radical scavenger. Then it donates a cysteine for the synthesis of glutathione. But what's really cool about it is it's one of the only free radical scavengers that has been shown in placebo-controlled studies to have an antidepressant effect. What does that mean? That means it passes the blood-brain barrier and reduces neuroinflammation in the brain, which always has an antidepressant anxiolytic effect. So that's why I'm a huge fan of NAC, because I know it works from controlled studies. So I use a gram of NAC 3 times a day. I'm really a big fan of it. I'm really upset, man. The thing is, we're living in a nanny state. Did you guys see that? I mean, I don't want to be political, but 2 days ago, CNN, which I am subscribed to on YouTube, so I see I never opened the videos, but I see that thing is like a gossip channel now. But they had a video 2 days ago saying, oh, breaking news, new evidence that the virus may have started, I don't know what we can say, that what we can't talk about may have started in a lab in Wuhan. Finally, CNN saying it. If I mentioned this 6 months ago, my channel would have been banned from YouTube. It's crazy what we can and can't do today. And the problem is that people are willing to accept it, I feel like. If people go and protest this NAC ban, it'll be reversed. But not enough people care. We don't care when our rights get taken away. And we're the only nation with a lot of rights. And they're going to be taken away slowly. That's my opinion. What do you guys think?
I agree. I think slowly but surely they're going to start trying to take away shit.
Everything's being taken away. That's why I got to move to Texas. But Texas now has a crazy homeless problem. Did you hear about this in Austin?
No, what happened?
Boston, apparently they have like a little skid row in Boston, in Austin, in Texas too. So Joe Rogan brought the mayor of Austin onto the show, and he was talking about this homeless situation.
I told Blue if Oregon wasn't so liberal, I'd move there because of the legal steroids.
Me too, yeah. I wanted to. My wife mentioned it when they legalized everything there. She's like, "Why don't we move to Oregon?" And then the riots started. So I was like, "Oh no, I can't go there now. This is a bad time." But anyway, so David Lamam says, "Do vacuums really shrink the waist, or is it all BS? And if true, how does it work at shrinking the waist?" I think Vince would know, as he has classic guys. I don't know. Why is he calling you Vince? Blue? I think he's saying Blue would know. But anyway, what do you guys think about vacuums? Do they work?
I think they help you learn how to really control your midsection. I don't know if I don't think it shrinks your waist. I just think that you end up adapting to a new type of control for your midsection. I think it's very valuable for posing, and displaying your physique on stage. But, as far as shrinking the waist, it can't do that. But you're able to control it and display it differently
on stage.
I completely agree with. He says no. It's obviously not going to shrink your waist, but it's more mind muscle connection and control.
Mm-hmm.
So Blue, what's your theory on what happened to Rolly's waist when he shrunk it? Botox of the muscles?
I've heard a lot of different things. I mean, because I train, a few guys that train over there in Kuwait at the same gym and stuff like that. I've heard a lot of different things. I mean, I don't feel comfortable saying, because I just don't want to.
No, I understand.
I just don't want to,
Of course, we don't want to say something that could be wrong.
Well, I thought the rumor was that he was squeaming.
Yeah, but I don't know if that can do that, right? Sorry.
Can it push your organs back inside?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, waist training does come into play a little bit because, I mean, it can compress your organs. But the problem is with that, sometimes your organs, are in a certain position because of, the way that they do their job. And when you're compressing them and causing stress, you're going to throw off their performance.
Oh, it's definitely not healthy. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But I was told that Rolly was literally living in a screen for a couple of years. Like he never took it off.
So
I think it's probably that, maybe cutting back on the insulin and, some other factors.
So let's comment on this from a historical perspective, because we have, I think, 300 years of history of women using corsets in Europe. So we know when women use corsets, which are slightly different shape, obviously, they tend to move their organs down under that, and that's been seen many times. These women lived on average normal lives, and they were able to get pregnant as well. The difference between them and what we may be doing is that they did that in their teenage years and younger than that. So their bones and their organs formed like that originally instead of being squeezed. If you're actually squeezing your adult organs trying to move them, I would imagine that, Blue, you might be very right, that you may really hamper the ability of the organs to function. But I wonder if there's another generation of people, because people are so obsessed with classic physique, I wonder if there's some 12-year-olds going around with those Squeam things, thinking I'm going to be ahead of the game, because that might be the future of the Chris Bumsteads. So Armesh Singh, the lion, says, Singh means lion in I think Punjabi or Hindi, but he says, best ARB or method to lower my hematocrit on TRT. My hematocrit went from 47 to 53 in 2 months of 125 milligrams a week of TRT. I live at sea level, no sleep apnea. I just wanted to mention, I don't know who it is, but somebody's going around saying that ARBs are like a great method to lower hematocrit. This is not true. Maybe this is the case in chronic kidney disease. It's not like a major effect. I don't know if it happens in healthy people, to be honest with you. All the studies I could find on this are in people with chronic kidney disease, and therefore there's many things going on potentially there. If you want to lower your hematocrit, you do phlebotomies. You donate blood. That's and that way you get rid of some iron, which is associated with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, and so on. Do you guys have anything to say about that?
I agree with that completely, because people have messaged me, oh, hey, my hematocrit's a little high. I'm going to get some losartan. And I'm like, why?
What is going on?
Yeah, I'm like, go donate some blood.
Yes, man. Why not? I don't understand. You're not losing anything by donating blood. It could be really great for you. Okay, so the other thing is, Mads Vedel says, what's your take on losartan and what are Boston's thoughts on Superdrol? So let's talk about losartan briefly. Guys, losartan was the first ARB. It is not superior in any kind of way than the other ARBs. Trust me, I spent hours and hours looking at a pharmacology of each ARB and many studies. Losartan has a lot of interesting studies on it because it was the first one. So you'll find studies with PPR delta agonism, protective benefits, and so on. Whatever those protective benefits with the PPAR specifically exists with telmisartan also. So it's not really special in any kind of way. I would never take losartan personally, unless you have metabolism issues with the other ARBs, and somehow losartan is metabolically easier.
Yeah, losartan's good for bodybuilders and like pre-contest, because I knew a doctor that specializes in bodybuilders and blood pressure and controlling blood pressure, and he's all about losartan.
That's just because of his personal experience. There's no academic reason to think so. I've studied this thing more than the pharmacology of most medicines because I've had hypertension for 10 years. So I'm really concerned about using the right one. Losartan is just...
I definitely wouldn't use it.
Losartan is sustanon of testosterone. That's what it is. Like, it has a lot of effects that are not as specific.
Yeah, the main thing that I wouldn't do is, like, if you're getting ready for a show, you got to remove the beta blocker at some point,
The beta blocker, not the ARB. Yeah. Okay. What about Superdrol?
That's a hard one, man. It's like it could work good for some people, but majority of people, it kills their digestive tract. It kills their appetite, makes them feel toxic, but it's one of the strongest drugs out there.
Blue? What about Superdrol?
Yeah, I think, again, in the right circumstance, the right individual, and using it at a very minimal amount of time, it can be complementary. But again, super toxic. I honestly, I don't really suggest it, that often. It's kind of rare that I do.
Don't you think that I've never used Superdrol because of my fears of the toxicity and because Anadrol worked so well for me? Don't you think that Anadrol is maybe less cost and more a little bit, okay benefit, but less cost? Maybe the ratio is a little bit better than Superdrol, even used sparingly twice a week or something like that?
Well, I think during contest time,
Okay.
that's why they're using the Superdrol. That way they can be super tight. In the off season, obviously Anadrol is, would be my choice as well. But yeah, maybe at the most, the last couple of weeks or something during a show, take a moderate dose. But yeah, I know some guys that, have even asked me, hey, can I use this in the off season? I'm like, no.
Even like people, the problem with Superdrol is people take too much. Even 5 mgs of Superdrol, just 5 milligrams is fucking strong as shit.
Really? You do feel strength gains from that?
Oh, for sure. 5 mgs. Like I used to get the Superdrol in liquid form. And I don't know if I told you about that. So I had this Superdrol made in alcohol, like Everclear. Like that's what they mixed it in. And I went into my stash one day and that fucking shit evaporated. It was laying on its side and there was some air that got in there and it like evaporated. So dude, I lost my mind and like I'll never use Superdrol again, and I just lost my mind. So I contacted the source and he was like, dude, the shit probably evaporated, but the chemical's still in there. So he said, it's probably stronger milligram per ml now. But dude, just 5 milligrams of that shit had me fucking and then I went to 10 and I felt like shit.
Yeah, interesting. I might have to, I want to do a profile on Superdrol, so I may have to trial it shortly. Okay, so Tim Hisseni asked a really interesting question. I wonder if this is Husseini's last name, but anyway, he says, thoughts for using Novadex or Clomid only cycle for optimizing natural male hormones without ever touching steroids. So I wanted to answer this quickly. So what they do to people that are obese, medical doctors, especially with infertility, is that they'll often, before suggesting TRT or something, add an AI to lower their estrogen levels, which will often raise their testosterone levels. There's a specific ratio. It's like 6-1 or something. If you're above that, they'll consider, or below 6-1, they'll consider giving you an AI. They don't consider you giving you Clomid or Novadex if they're educated, because if you're going to do that long term, you're going to get potentially ocular damage. And what I notice is people from the Middle East and from India particularly get these eye floaters from Clomid and Novadex long-term use. So that's a concern. The other thing is that if you're using SERMs, you can also have an increase in estrogen because it's blocking your estrogen receptors from feeling estrogen. So sometimes you aromatize more. The expression of the aromatase enzyme will go up more. This is in academic research also. So for this reason, I think that if you were to do that, it's not a horrible idea, but you might want to use an AI and reduce your estrogen to something like, your estradiol to something like 20. Not too low, but if you are at 40 or 35, you'll probably get a little bit of a testosterone boost with not much danger to yourself. What do you think, Blue?
I agree. I definitely run an anti-estrogen if you're going to use one of those. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I like Clomid a lot, but you got to run an Astrazole with it.
Well, the thing is, Clomid is that the danger is basically, well, I agree with you on that point also, but the danger is potentially that I think. So if you're not prone to it, like I have genetics for macular degeneration, so I'm really concerned about it. I take lutein, which is the only supplement shown to decrease the progression of it, and I'm very concerned about it always. So Jordan asked, difference between Aromacin and Arimidex and Letrozole and your preferences. What do you think, Bostin?
Well, I think obviously Letrozole is going to be your king. It's going to be the strongest. Some people respond better to Aromacin. Some people respond better to Arimidex. Those are pretty. A lot of people say Aromacin's healthier on blood work, like for your cholesterol levels and stuff and your lipids. I personally have tried both, and I don't see a huge difference between Arimidex and Aromacin. But Letrozole completely smashes my estrogen for sure.
But you have high cholesterol and low cholesterol naturally.
I don't know. I don't remember. I never really remembered what my cholesterol was.
Not too high. Yeah. What about you, Blue? What do you think?
Well, one thing I've noticed with clients, especially a recent client, the major difference side effect wise between an Astrazole and a Aromacin is a lot of guys can get depression from the Anastrozole. So they have to use the Aromacin. I had that actually happen with a client recently. Again, these are all different medications, different folks, different circumstances. So, I mean, it really depends. That's why I'm so big on dissecting the person, especially the history of what they've done. their blood work. It's not going to give you every answer, but it's going to give you some answers. But yeah, I'm personally a fan of anastrozole. I do like letrozole in certain situations, but again, different tools for different times.
So aromatase is a CYP450 enzyme, which converts testosterone to estradiol and androstenedione into estrone. It's located, interestingly, I wanted to mention to the audience, often you have a high aromatase activity around your Leydig and Sertoli cells in your testicles, which is why if you use HCG, you aromatize more than when you inject testosterone. Now, there's three generations of AIs. The third generation is the ones we're talking about. There are two major branches of them. One is reversible, non-steroidal AIs, which include Arimidex and letrozole. And there are irreversible, what they call suicide inhibitors, irreversible steroidal ones, which is aromasin. So aromasin binds to the part of aromatase that would bind to testosterone or whatever, and is irreversible, sticks to it until you get rid of that aromatase. The other ones are non-steroidal. They block the CYP450 part of the enzyme. And basically the overall thing is, like, when you have when they're using children trying to get them to grow taller, they give them letrozole, much more effective. I studied a lot about like regaining fertility. When you have low fertility, letrozole is always shown to be more effective. Why? It's stronger. It's much more potent. So you're going to get way more side effects, just like with Arimidex versus anastrozole. Personally, Arimidex versus aromasin. Personally, I like to use aromasin for myself because when you lower estrogen, you lower serotonergic signaling in your brain. And that's how you get a lot of anxiety, a lot of the long-term effects of aggression and stuff like that from steroids. I like to keep estradiol high, and it's much safer if you use aromasin. Don't you find, Blue? They can ballpark it, start at 12.5, and if it goes badly, they can just take it out.
Yes, it's much easier to control. Yeah,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Ahmed Imad al-Najjar says, I read a study about the effects of phone radiation on the brains of mice. What are your thoughts about Bluetooth headphones and especially earbuds on the brain? Do you guys have opinions on this?
I don't know.
I do. Do you have one, Blue?
No.
So I wanted to talk about this because, like, it's an interesting subject. So I've looked into the research of this a couple of years ago. It seems that for the last 20 years or 30 years, actually for the last 30 years, academics have been wondering if cell phones would cause brain cancer. They didn't know. It's not that they knew. They were wondering. There's a lot of reasons to think that we have higher oxidative stress with all of these signaling things happening around us. But it just never happened. There's no evidence of anyone ever getting a brain cancer from these things. So that's the main reason that they think that these things may not be dangerous. There is actually academic research showing that hypothesizing that potentially 4G could be dangerous or things like that. And there's reasons to think so. It's just the fact that we've never seen somebody get sick from it. So dadbod.com says, thoughts on ephedrine and its effect on insulin sensitivity versus its effect on well-being deep in a cut, aka does its effect on insulin sensitivity and one's ability to fill out override the boost it gives in mood, energy, diuretic, and metabolism? So I think he's a little confused. Ephedrine increases insulin sensitivity. It doesn't decrease it. Ephedrine increases brown fat thermogenesis. Anything that's adrenergic increases your insulin sensitivity. You know, coffee will...
Yeah, I would say ephedrine is one of my favorite things to run pre-contest over clenbuterol.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a confused one. Okay, one of the final ones. I know I've taken a lot of you guys' time, but I was excited to talk to Blue, so I wanted to keep him here for a lot of questions. But Francesco Gianniali says, how to block, he's an Italian guy, he says, how to block or slow down body hair growth. Body hair looks nasty, and I'm very hairy by nature. My father has the same problem, hair on shoulders, back, everything. Do you guys have ideas on this?
Well,
the last question.
I noticed when I run a lot of DHT drugs like Proviron and Masteron, my hair is not as thick on my body.
Oh, really?
Oh, 100%, dude. When I'm on like 800 mgs of Masteron or like 800 mgs of Primo, my hair doesn't grow nearly as fast.
Fascinating. What about you, Blue?
I say just buy a really good set of clippers and a Mach 3.
Yeah, exactly. The truth is, if you're trying to inhibit hair growth, you'll inhibit growth. Because a lot of the things that cause hair growth, like your beard, when your androgen receptors in your dermal papilla cells feel androgen, they release IGF-1 there. They cause a downstream cascade of IGF-1, which grows the beard hair. So the way to inhibit the beard hair there is inhibit the androgen signaling or the IGF-1. So basically, if you really want to get big, you're probably going to get a little hairier, I think. Don't you guys agree?
One of the fastest times I've ever grew in my life was when I was 21, and my hair all of a sudden was, I don't know if it was because of the growth hormone I was on, is those old Riptropins. I don't know if you remember, guys, those Riptropins from like 2012. Dude,
Yeah.
my hair grew like fucking nuts on that shit.
Interesting. All right, Blue. So I think that's the end of our questions. Do you have anything else you guys want to talk about?
We could touch bases on fake coaches. That's a favorite topic of mine.
What are fake coaches?
Oh man, 98% of the industry. Me and Boston talk about it a lot. When are we going to make that list, Boston?
We have to make that list. We have to. That'll be awesome, because you know what? People would fucking look at that list and they wouldn't. A lot of people would not hire. We already know a few of them. We got Matt Jensen on there. We got Alan Kress,
Dave Palumbo, 100%. You know it. Dave Palumbo is beyond fake. He is beyond fake.
So Nick Trigili sent his. So Nick Trigili had all of Dave's coaching programs. So he sent them to everybody. So apparently all the coaching programs are identical. It's like ridiculous. Hundreds of programs identical.
But Nick Trigili
you can be similar, but they're like identical.
Yeah, they are.
They're identical, but Nick and him can fight for which placing they want on the list. So I mean, there's a lot of
Dave won't do what Nick does. Nick will take your money and disappear. So that's like, I don't think Dave does that.
Yeah, Nick will rob you and just lie to you, and he'll also hire hackers to get into your personal things. I mean, I could go on and on. The most successful thing he's done is gay porn. That's another story. But
he's a successful hustler. He's a successful hustler. He makes money out of nothing, but he does it by scamming people.
He's scamming though.
Yeah. Nope. That guy needs God majorly, but that's
true. That's the cure. God, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. That's probably the only thing that'll change an individual like that. But yeah, I mean, Dave, he'll send you a plan, but I've had people message me and say, "What do you think about Dave's plan?" Or "What have you heard?" And I'll just message him, "Just Google it. You can have it for free." It's the same plan to every person. He's caused so many people, destroyed their thyroids. My friend is diabetic because of him. I mean, there's a lot of stuff, man, a lot of shadiness. And I told Boston for years, and I'm glad Boston sees it now. And I'm glad you see it. And with
it was
some
heartbreaking for me. It was really.
I tell people all the time, go to their Instagram. That's their resume. Go to their Instagram and look up their clients. Matt Jensen, all those dudes, all fake. You will only see them talking, and then maybe one person every now and then. The scam that they have going on is really good. But really do your research.
It's a marketing scam that for sure. Like you said, they'll have a couple guys with good genetics, and then everyone else will be trash. They won't pay attention. So yeah, my definition of a fake coach is somebody who markets like there's some great coach, and then leaves like their average guys in the dust and doesn't even respond to them and doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I've heard, I don't know if this is true, that Matt he has somebody else writing some of the programs for the normal people. But if you are a famous bodybuilder, Matt Johnson's a good coach, right?
Well, yeah, you get free coaching and free everything.
Free stuff,
you get free everything, but the guys, but it's all of the people that he doesn't show that look horrible or suffering from kidney, issues. Those are the guys that are actually fueling the system to pay for the other guy's stuff. It's a sad thing. It really is a sad thing. That's why I always tell people, go to the Instagram, look at what's there. If they're just talking and they show one person every now and then, that's all that's there. If they had other people, they would show them. And if they're showing bikini does not count. This is bodybuilding. I don't care how good your bikini lady is. That's like telling me, that you won some championship in ping pong. I don't care. It's not impressive.
That's funny
But
comparison.
yeah, but Leo, that is right. But Jansen does have other people write programs for him now.
What about AJ? Well, somebody that he
AJ Sims is another fake coach.
Yeah,
AJ Sims is on the list too because he sent a physique guy. I have the program, a classic physique guy that weighed like 230, and a 300-pound bodybuilder. The guy that Bleu trains now, Seth Brooks. He sent him the same exact fucking program as a classic guy. Never made any changes. Charged up the ass, and so he's another guy that cares about his top guys. And I posted his programs, and I remember that, and like he had all of his clients report him, and they ended up getting taken down. But I posted him, and everyone was like, "What the fuck? I got the same program." They were pissed, dude. I blew his spot up, but he's another fake coach because that's another guy who just sends everyone the same shit.
How long are these programs on like Microsoft Word? How many pages are they usually?
A couple pages, it's like the whole fucking thing, like the health stuff. Like take all your natural supplements. It's a copy and paste, Leo. It's a copy and paste.
You know, mine are usually 15 pages. They take me so that's why I can't do that. Every time I spend 6 hours starting the first, it's too much. It's too. I'm not boasting, by the way. This is not a good thing. It's too long. The clients can't even read it. It's a bad idea. But so who else is on this coach list? Well,
the other thing to consider when looking at this coach, at certain coaches, how many of their clients have died? So
yeah, I mean,
by
the way, can we talk about that? Can we talk about recently? Because we had Mike Wheels on the show, and then I couldn't honestly watch the video, but Milos responded to him with a 15
saw
minute.
That our video fucking struck a nerve with him.
Yeah, but then after he responded to that, his client died a week later, like from a seizure, no less. Which maybe the client honestly seizure. So usually you get seizures if you're epileptic, which he had no health conditions. And by the way, this client was Saudi. And he had no health conditions, or if you're maybe it's the client's fault. Maybe he was using some benzos. I don't know if you guys notice a lot of rappers die from seizures now. This is from benzo use, but it's really scary. I mean, he's had a couple of people die, right, recently?
Yeah, he has.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're not always responsible. You don't know what the client's doing. And at the end of the day, you're doing a risky lifestyle with some people will die, but you can do checks, maybe not for seizures, but for a lot of other things like dialysis things should have been prevented, I feel.
I would say the main thing with that is just, yeah, man, it's hard to ever blame a death on a coach, right?
Yeah.
But you do know if somebody pushes diuretics, the number one guy that kills people, that's killed multiple people, and it's been from strictly diuretic use, Bleu, you know exactly who I'm talking about, is Shelby Starnes.
I don't know who this guy is. But from what kind of directs was he using?
Is Bleu still on? Is he?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, he uses a lot, and he uses them for a long time. I've seen protocols where aldactone started 3 weeks out. The last week is diazide. Yeah. The last week diazide's added, and then the last 24 hours, Lasix or Bumix. So I've seen some wild stuff. Yeah.
He's the worst. Shelby Starnes will have his clients do like that. 4 weeks out, he'll have them do like aldactone, and this is for females, Leo. This is not males. And then he'll have them, and his chick died at the Tampa Pro last year, and then he had another chick in the hospital recently.
Oh,
but
that's different. Diuretics, you can blame the coach, I think.
Oh, 100% I blame him, 100%. Yeah, and then, dude, he uses diazide like the last week, like literally for a week. I'm like, what the fuck?
Wow, that's really reckless. That's whoever that guy is. People should stop.
I'm shocked you haven't heard of Shelby Starnes. He's known for coaching all the chicks.
I don't follow those chicks. I don't even understand what they do on stage, to be honest. The bikini thing, I don't understand.
No. These are like, he's known for coaching a woman's physique.
Oh, okay. That I understand more. But the bikini thing, by the way, I don't even know what I'm looking at. I'm like confused because I like chicks that are not so skinny. So like I'm looking at this, I'm like, skinny. Yeah, they're way too skinny, and it's not my type of thing. I don't really like the fake tits so much, like you, Bostin. But we found out you don't like that either. But all right, so I think we should wait. Next time we're gonna have a fake coach list posted somewhere on Instagram for one of you guys.
Let's do that, man, because like we would save a lot of people.
Yeah, I'm sorry about not rating the physiques this time also.
And we can absolutely, because sometimes clients and tons of people message me and they'll say, hey, you're always talking about, the fake coaches. Will you tell me a few that you would recommend? And I always will list great people. I'll say Dominic Cardone, John Meadows, Bostin. Like, I will gladly tell. It's just the problem is that 99% of these guys are dangerous and their marketing is a scam.
Yeah, I
that's,
think
that's true. It's funny when people ask me for referrals, it's usually like 4 people. It's Trey Hodge, Blue Taylor, Chris Tuttle, and who else? Maybe Nelson Jones.
I like John Meadows a lot. I love his character.
John doesn't really take clients anymore. He's too expensive for most people. He charges like $1,000 or something a month, I think.
Yeah, and especially after what happened to his heart now, I think he's going to be even more knowledgeable.
Oh, John's great, dude. He's one of the best in the industry. I wouldn't recommend anyone for coaching because I don't think he takes people, and if he does, he's like crazy expensive, you know?